over to the professionals.
Blessed by Gandhi, blah, blah, blah.
Started off with a bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up.
Surfing on the web and I'm shooting at 3. I've been goated when I got my G. I'm an alien boy from a different planet, yeah. So I got my drink, I'm riding in the 1920s Model T Ford. Call her Era Lord. Call me Levi, playing on the keys, boy. And I'm about to put my gloves on. If I said it, then I meant that. Yeah, I like that one, I'm about to get that. Crash that whip for the drumsticks, whiplash. I'm about to get them all. Are you with that? In a white boat, surrounded by blue. I want one, but I got a cop too. I wanna fly high in the sky, arms out wide, trying to soar from a bird's eye view. I'm on fire, Ricky, Bobby, cracking the pavement, Whitney, Bobby. I'm a Saki bomb, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Bruce Wayne been a dog, and I keep it 101, cause I'm feeling kinda spotty. You sipping on some rock, and I'm sipping on octane. The only thing around my neck is the
Started off with a
blockchain.
bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up.
NFT, Twitter, blockchain. Seeing with the ghosts and we ballin' like LeBron James. Crypto. We can make a trade, get the memo. The field's not falling for the FOMO. Listening to coffee with Captain. You know we worldwide, they loco. I ain't never gonna stop rapping. Orlando, yeah, we working magic. We rocking Ethereum entities. I just went and caught me a half base. Man, I got a shout out
Started
to
off with a
40.
bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up.
Breaking the mood to choose one, but they got knowledge to move, son. I'm shocking in shades with my brother in suits. Yeah, them blues is coming. Even though it's hard to pick, eeny, miny, mo, soda on the mix, no biting lips, it's time to go. Index number 1, no thumbs up, you gotta scroll. Looking at the ghost in studio, it's time to go. Had a helmet on by myself until I met a mask that wanted to have a face off. So I had to bring my chainsaw, full tank of gas in the ride with my brakes off. I'm A1, but a different kind of steak sauce.
GM, welcome to Coffee with Captain Cap. Happy Monday, everyone. Hope you had a great weekend and looking forward to another great week. Things are heating up between the last time we went live and this morning. We've got a whole new blockchain L2 meta kickoff. It's not the right way to phrase it, but Ink Chain, which has been around for a minute, getting some real motion over the weekend as it seems like, I mean, the Ink token, Ink by Kraken, Kraken's blockchain has been out for a while. The token was, I think, essentially confirmed, but what the rumor mill heated up over the weekend is that it was coming as early as like September 8th. And it sent, not only did it send memes and NFTs on the chain, it also did a lot of like, the cash grabs basically flipped from Robinhood chain to Ink, even like direct copies, derivatives, some that were planning to launch on Robinhood changed their handle, went to Ink. So it's not a rotation. Robinhood chain is not dead. If anything, it might be beneficial for Robinhood chain as, you know, the cash grabs and the grifters have moved to a new chain or a new old chain. But yeah, there is some quality stuff on Ink as well. We'll get into that later today, as well as this tokenization super cycle per the title. We are live on X audio, X video, as well as Abstract in YouTube. The X links are pinned up top, and I will pin the link to Abstract and YouTube up top here in about 3 seconds. Join us wherever you'd like to watch the show or listen to the show today, whatever most convenient for you. We just ask while you're there, hit that like, subscribe, the repost. We're no longer doing bookmarks. No one cares about your bookmarks, including X Algo. What the algo cares about now is, are you copying the link? Easiest way to give us a boost, and it doesn't even clutter your timeline at all, is click that right or that arrow on the audio spaces up in the top right. Just click the arrow up and hit copy link. You don't have to paste anywhere, just simply copying. Or if you want to click through to the space itself, the post that's pinned to the Jumbotron all the way to the right, you can open that up and same thing. Well, like it while you're there, drop a comment, but then click that arrow up, hit copy, and that lets the algo know that you want other people to see this, more so than even a repost, believe it or not. Not only did Ink blockchain start heating up over the weekend, we have what I think is shaping up to be, I think, probably the biggest onboarding catalyst of 2026. I shared it this morning. I will share it here on stage. But before I get into the biggest onboarding catalyst of 2026, I would be remiss if I at least, even though we do have, it's called Football Tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time with my co-host Ben White. We'll definitely talk EPL opening weekend there, as well as the NFL training camp update, including about the 6 hours where Mike Washington, the backup running back in Las Vegas, was being steamed all the way up to, like, I saw some, I think he went as early as like second round in some cases, which might be fair. I mean, he's probably more realistically, if Genty were to miss the year, like a 3 to 4 turn pick. But Genty's not going to miss the year. Turns out it was just an ankle, which, depending on the severity, if it's a low ankle, maybe a week he misses. If it's a high ankle, at most, like worst case, would be like 6 weeks. But at the end of the day, Genty is. Oh, speaking of Genty and his QB, pulled my first Mendoza. Granted, it's just the base, no auto or anything, but pulled my first Mendoza rookie card over the weekend. Love to see that. Let's see if I got anything else that's worth noteworthy in here. This was like, it was one that was turned the other way. So Joe, you have to tell me. I didn't even look. I assume it's not much, but this, I don't know what it's called, a big ticket player, Burrow, was a insert or a card that was flipped the other way in a pack, and it's obviously different than the base card. So, but I assume it's nothing special. For as excited as I am about the Mendoza rookie card for Von Frutton, I'm equally excited for my Taylor Green rookie card, because if he hits, which is unlikely, but if he hits, this would be a guy that maybe you go sweep a bunch of like cards for 10 cents today, and if he hits, he is the next Lamar Jackson. The guy is quite literally a freak athlete. But I'm almost through. Joey, I saw you try to come up. If you're having issues, there was an X update once again. So if anyone wants to join us on stage, you're welcome. Open mic, open show, open stage rather. But just make sure you're on the most recent version of X. That'll throw you some glitches if you're not. But had fun. I still have a couple packs left in my hobby box, but I think I've hit almost every. I don't know, like how many. I'll ask Joey. He's coming up on stage, so I'll ask him some card questions when he gets up here. But I'm curious how many, like on average, how many hobby boxes would you have to go through to complete a set? Do you know the answer, Joey? Like on average, just like ballpark, or to mostly complete a set, then you maybe got to fill in some onesie twosie pieces.
Do you mean like collect every single base card?
Yeah, because I still have a few packs left in my first hobby box, and I feel like I've hit like every notable rookie. I don't know if I'm just like running good, and again, they're just bases, so it's not like these aren't crazy cards. But if someone's wanting to collect like the rookies of this year, I think I've hit almost every skill player rookie. I don't know that much about the offensive linemen, the defensive tackles and stuff, but as far as the quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, I've hit almost every one so far. And I'm curious, is that normal, or did I just run good on the first box? Like, is it even like, is that, maybe it's a weird question, no one really cares, but yeah, what is like, I was kind of surprised that I've hit so many in my first, and it's just a hobby box, not even the jumbo box. I haven't ripped into that yet.
I mean, based on the research, I think there's somewhere between 350 and 400 base cards. I think, and that doesn't obviously include all the inserts and the short prints and the numbers and all that stuff. So I don't know what the odds are, like how many boxes you have to open to collect every base card. It's not usually like something they publish where it's like, the odds of collecting a base card are 1 in whatever, right? But the did you open what did you open? Hobbies, megas?
Just a hobby. I have a hobby and a jumbo. I haven't even the jumbo is still sealed.
The jumbo is the big boy. That's the one that's the one where you have a chance to hit the
auto and a relic. Yeah, in the hobby box, I pulled because the hobby box was either or. You get one auto or relic, and I pulled a Caleb Williams jersey.
Yeah, I saw that one you shared. So interesting about the jersey, like you shared. So there's player worn. So you got to make sure. Just a quick knowledge drop. Whenever you're pulling sports cards, and you pull like relic, there's player worn, and then there's game worn. So interestingly, with the player worn, what they'll do is let's say Caleb Williams is doing like a signing or an interview or something.
That's retarded.
They'll literally have him put on a whole bunch of jerseys.
Yeah, that's retarded. I didn't realize, and that's maybe the first time I've used that word on the show, but that's dumb. I didn't realize that. So it's like not even a game worn jersey. It's purely to pump his cards.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just purely to make extra. It's basically just someone chopped up a jersey. He doesn't wear it in a game, so that's what it is. It's a player worn.
Exactly.
It's not a game.
So like he'll put on like 10 jerseys at the same time, and go do a player signing or an interview, and then they'll take those 10 jerseys off. They'll cut them up, and they'll put that's like the low end stuff, right? That's the low end relics. Then you'll get the game worn, and those are the ones where there's more value. Yes, I agree with you. I think the player warns are stupid. Like player warns could literally be he wore it in an interview, like, and never even went on the practice field. It's pretty dumb, but that's kind of how they get like, they distinguish the value between them, and also like how they get so much stuff to put into all of these cards. That way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I get it. DB Epic ads, often like for a rookie, they might be player worn because they haven't played in a game yet. That makes sense. But come on. Like for a starting quarterback, like even if they don't make the playoffs, you've got 17 games-ish. This swatch is like this big. You could probably make 100 cards out of one single jersey. So like over the course of the season, there's like 1,700 cards you can make out of, which I have no idea the supply in these. Maybe that's still too low. But anyways, I digress. Not that big a deal.
The issue is that like not every jersey, right? Like some of the jerseys stay intact, right? So you can't cut up every single jersey. So they have to have like other stuff. It's pretty dumb, but that's how like sometimes you get excited. You're like, yeah, no, not you particularly, but in general, you're like, yeah, I pulled a jersey relic, and then you go on the back and you read, and it's like, oh, this wasn't even worn in a game. Like, who cares?
Yeah. So I haven't hit any like high. The first box hasn't been anything like crazy value wise, especially knowing that, and I wasn't expecting the Caleb jersey to be crazy anyways. But I've pulled a lot of rookie base cards, but that's nothing to write home about yet, other than just.
I mean, there's still value. Like if you think about it, so obviously with rookies you just don't know yet, but like we'll use Victor Wembanyama as an example, right? Like he was super hyped, but he had the blood clots and his market tanked. Now his base rookie card sells for his base Prism rookie card sells for $70, and in a PSA 10 it sells for $400. And there's like 10, I don't even know how many 10,000s of them, right, in a PSA 10.
Sheesh.
So just because you pull a rookie base card doesn't mean that base card might not have value. Now, if you pulled an offensive lineman rookie base card, it's probably never going to be worth more than the paper it's printed on. But for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers that have like actual upside, those rookie base cards could be worth something if they turn into be really good players. I mean, like, wouldn't you want a rookie, a base Patrick Mahomes rookie card right now? I
Sure.
would.
Yeah. And that's why
Yeah.
I guess I'm happy to hit on all of them because it gives me like, wide. Basically, if anyone hits in this class, I should be, it should be enough to pay for the hobby box and then some. Assuming.
For sure. And then there's also players that like I mentioned it in the war room, and I think you commented on about like Caleb Downs. Like most defensive players don't get like a ton of like their value doesn't go too crazy. But his stock is going up so much right now, and I would wager you could probably get any of his cards that recently got pulled for pretty cheap. He'd probably be one of the rookies that I'd want to buy right now if his cards were. I haven't looked up the price of his cards, but I think he's probably going to end up being outside of the quarterbacks. And I don't even know, you got Jeremiah Love and some of the wide receivers, but I think Caleb Downs is probably going to end up being the best player out of this draft. And if that's the case, picking up a bunch of his rookie cards right now for cheap before he ends up being a Pro Bowler this year, which he has that kind of potential, wouldn't be a bad move. No financial advice.
Yeah. It's interesting. I still am kind of blown away that, I'm a Buckeye, and so I think Caleb Downs is awesome, but it's interesting to me that a safety of all defensive positions, because safeties just also typically don't put up big stats. Might he have a year where he has a bunch of interceptions? Maybe, but it's not like he's going to break a sack record or anything like that. So it's interesting to me that you think a safety might be the best rookie in terms of cards. I still have to go with
look
Mendoza.
at guys like Sean Taylor.
Yeah.
Granted, very, very traumatic situation, but Sean Taylor's was a safety. Ed Reed, there's Ronnie Lott, there are safeties out there that are very, very collectible because of how good they were. And I think Caleb Downs has that potential.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're talking like Ronnie Lott and Sean Taylor, quite literally two of the greatest safeties of all time. So that's probably the ceiling. It would be the ceiling for Downs, but I still probably side with Mendoza as the chase you want in this class, because if he hits and you end up with a franchise quarterback, not only, I think one of the big differences with the quarterback, not only are they the most valuable position in terms of what these players get paid, as well as what their cards appreciate too, but he's also, if he stays healthy, he could play for 15, 20 years. And it's just I just think the upside is so much more on, on a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, quarterback over everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? For sure. But I'm saying, I think for a sleeper buy right now, I think most people don't focus on the defensive players. But yeah, Mendoza, Jeremiah Love, those are the ones that you probably want to collect in the short term because they have the most upside for sure.
Hope you had a good weekend. Hope school drop-off's going well for you. Speaking of school, day one, we moved her in last week, but day one for my daughter, her first classes today at FAU. Excited for her. And she's adjusting to campus life pretty well. Hasn't asked me for any additional money yet, so I'll take that as a win. Although I know it's coming. So
she's staying in a dorm?
She is, yep.
She get a meal plan?
Yep. We got a meal plan,
nice.
And then before we even started, we adjusted it. Less meals, more flex bucks, because she's kind of a diva, and so she'll definitely go to the spend more at Starbucks and Chick-fil-A on campus than she will on the in the dining hall. But yeah, all is good. Excited for her, and excited for this week in crypto. Excited for this week, this month, this quarter, this year. I don't think this was a dead cat bounce. I really truly believe bottom was in, and things are about to get really, really exciting. I've got so much to talk about this morning. In fact, it's OX Lyris says part of the cycle where he stops Squawk Box and goes straight to CWC for the morning buzz. Appreciate you being here. I'm a big Jacoby Lane fan as well. I think he's probably if you're drafting best ball or redraft, he probably maybe a last round pick in redraft. because he's still like, I mean, now Rashard Bateman may be out for a while. Their wide receiver 2 per depth chart got, I don't know what it was, maybe domestic violence, something. Let me check. I saw it. Anyways, Bateman was expected to be the wide receiver 2, and then you got Elijah Surratt, and he was arrested on domestic violence charges. So he could and should be out for a while, because not only a DV charge, but allegedly attacked his ex with a newborn baby inside. Like, the guy should probably be suspended for the year if that turns out to be true. And I guess it was a June 3rd incident, so it happened a while ago. It just came out with, or the charges just got dropped, so it wasn't like the charges probably stick. Anyways, my point being on Jacoby Lane, I am a fan. I think it's just one of those where you got to keep your expectations in check. Great player for best ball, in my opinion, because you're just looking for spike weeks in best ball. And he's a player, like, he's going to moss some players this year. He's going to be great for highlight reels. He's also the type of player that does very, very well in training camp, where they don't have pads on, or the stuff you're seeing on the timeline is just big plays. He is a big play machine. He's a highlight reel waiting to happen because of his style of play, and his hands are probably twice the size of mine in the average human. So I think Jacoby Lane will be a great best ball play. Probably going to be frustrating in redraft fantasy or managed fantasy, where you have to set your starting lineup, because he might have weeks with like 2 touchdowns. He's going to have other weeks where he probably doesn't catch 2 passes. It would be my guess. But all in, yeah, good, solid young player, and I think he will do. I think he'll have a great career. To be determined how big of a season he goes this year. We'll go back to Joey's hand. I saw Gangsta Geek also join the stage. We'll get around to hands here before I jump into the headlines of the day. But I will also have to say that thoroughly enjoyed my first weekend as an EPL fan. The Premier League kicked off some shocking results over the weekend. I've been talking about if I choose a team this year for Premier League, it's between Brighton and Brentford. Brighton smoked Aston Villa 4-0, and Brentford also had a solid start. I can't remember if it was 2-0 or Brentford won 3-0. Yeah, Brentford beat Tottenham 3-0. So Brentford and Brighton, they heard that I was a fan, and right now, if you look at because of their goal differential, they're 1 and 2 in the table. Hull, probably the big upset on the weekend. Very much so unexpected. Hull beat Manchester United. Man U, kind of a favorite, maybe won more titles than any other team in the Premier League, or they're like one of the legendary teams. Hull had just got promoted from the Champions League last year, and many expected him to go right back. And in fact, I saw someone making a joke like, Hull has 4 MSL players on their team. Man U has none. Lesson in there. My biggest takeaway in all, though, from my first weekend as a Premier League fan, well, I have a few. One is I did not realize that I now need to get, like, Premier League may actually get me back on a cable subscription because of freaking USA Network. Like, I wasn't able to watch the Man City game yesterday because it was on USA. I did subscribe to Peacock, either Peacock or Paramount. One of the I have both of them because of this. But I did not realize that so many of the games were on USA Network. And I don't think, if anyone knows how you can get USA Network as a standalone sub, let me know, because I do have a lot of subscriptions, but it's all just through Amazon Prime and a la carte. I don't want to add a cable subscription at $80 a month when all I would use it for is USA Network to watch a few games a week. But anyways, I digress. If anyone knows how you can sub just to
YouTube
TV,
you have to subscribe.
Yeah, but
YouTube TV.
You still have to pay. You still have to buy the base package, though, right?
Fubo or something like that has it.
YouTube TV
Hulu Plus has it.
Yeah, but with Hulu Plus and YouTube TV, you still have to buy the base package, right? Like, it's not cable per se, but you still have to pay like their entry level plans, like $60 a month.
Yeah, you still got to pay for one of those plans. I think USA Network is on Sling, Fubo. Or I don't know how you even say that one, and YouTube TV, but you got to pay for it though.
Yeah. We'll see. Speaking of college football talk, is the new NCAA game out yet?
Did what come out yet?
The new NCAA football game, NCAA 27. Is
I
it
don't
out?
think so. I haven't seen anything about it.
Steve says it's out. He hasn't had a chance much to play it with work. I have not. I've not downloaded it yet.
Speaking of NCAA, have you seen? I think I sent you something on Instagram. Have you seen all this stuff about the NFL players going back to college?
Yeah, it's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Like, there's even some. There's like so. There's a group of players that, you know, they came out this year, went undrafted, signed onto teams, played preseason games, practice squad, whatever, got cut, and they're going back. But then there's even this one this morning I saw where this guy actually, I think I saved it. Let me see, or did I? Maybe I sent it to you, where he actually played in the NFL last year, I think, but still has college eligibility and is apparently going to is going to go back to, or is trying to, I don't know if it's a court case or whatever, to play with LSU this year as a tight end, like a highly touted tight end, but he's not making it in the NFL. Like, what are we doing? Like,
well, yeah,
what is happening here? Like, why are we letting people declare for the draft, join a practice squad, get cut, and be like, okay, I'm not good enough, so I'm just going to go back and play in college? Like, what are we doing? Is college football even college football anymore? Or is it just literally the minor leagues of the NFL?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like the farm system for you know, hey, I guess it is what it is.
Like, rename it. Like, make it like whatever the D League or like in the NBA or the minor leagues. Just rename it. It's not even college football anymore.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Put a cap on like the age, like you can't play after so many years, and you know, if you're 28 and you still want to play in college football and someone wants to pay you to be there, whatever. I think where it's, and I don't know, it probably, they're going to have to make some changes soon is my take on college football, because it's really going to become like, we thought previously it was like, oh, it's going to be an SEC school or Ohio State, or I guess we can now include Von Frutten's Hoosiers in the conversation, but it's like going to be a, Power 6 school, not even a Power 6 school. It's not even pro. It's going to be like one of 10 teams have a legitimate shot to win a national championship every year. The gap is just widening with this NIL stuff. And I don't know, it definitely needs some changes, but yeah.
I mean, that's what Indiana did. Indiana won, not take that away from them, but the average age for the Indiana football team was wasn't it more than like 3 or 4 teams in the NFL or something like that? Like crazy. Their whole team was like 5th, 6th, and 7th year seniors that, had COVID years and whatever. And it's like, you got regular college teams that are 18, 19 years old playing against 24 and 25-year-olds. Like, it's not even fair. The difference in maturity and intelligence and size between an 18-year-old and a 24-year-old. And now you got guys that actually played in the NFL going back to college.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
Crazy. Maria says get all the Premier League games via YouTube TV. Hizzy also dropped a link that says apparently, or a screenshot, that you can get USA Network through Peacock, which I have. But I wonder if you have to get I wonder if there's something like it doesn't. I don't know. I tell you this, like, I'm all for a la carte, far more so than the way cable used to just, it started at like $50 a month, became like $200 a month for cable TV, and you watch like 4 channels. I much prefer being able to pick my channels a la carte and just stream what I want, but it's getting a little complex.
It's only select shows and content from USA Network on Peacock. So my guess is probably not going to be soccer, because they're going to want you to pay for that.
Yeah. Also Peacock free with Walmart Plus membership. That's interesting. I did not know that. I don't have Walmart Plus.
I just signed up for that, actually. You can choose between Peacock or Paramount if you sign up for Walmart Plus.
It's also given me like a preview into like NFL this year. And I don't like really care too much about NFL games, because I have NFL.com or Red Zone or whatever that subscription is. And so I'm fine just watching Red Zone on Sundays. But yeah, you're going to need like 11 different subscriptions if you want to watch every NFL game this year. It's probably getting to the point. It's probably cheaper just to get Sunday ticket if I'm guessing. But let's do this. A lot to talk about outside of sports. I did thoroughly enjoy my first weekend as an EPL fan. So all my teams won. I am debating between Brighton and Brentford. Both had clean sheets, smoked their opponents. I said Barcelona is my La Liga team. They won 5-0. Actually, Como is my Serie A team, and they tied. And my biggest takeaway in all, though, is football Twitter is the best. Like it's really funny. People are extremely quick-witted, and like, yeah, you get the memes and stuff in all other US sports, but you think PvP in crypto land is bad, or I'll say this, if you enjoy PvP in crypto land, you don't even have to like watch the games, but you will get great enjoyment out of PvP in football Twitter. Like it is, I don't even know how to describe it. Like it is like I don't even know which sport I would consider second. Like NBA Twitter can be good at times. American football Twitter can be good at times. College football Twitter, probably college football Twitter is more of like trash talk back and forth compared to, that's similar to EPL. But yeah, football Twitter is incredible. It's just incredible. Like one of my favorite, like Holland, if you're not, I'm assuming most people, even if you didn't watch the World Cup, you probably saw Holland somewhere on your social media. And
did you see he cut his hair?
Yeah.
And then missed like an easy scoring chance, and people said it's true what the Bible says about cutting your hair or something like that. Like there was some meme, like because Samson cut his hair or whatever, or something like that.
Yeah, Joey just front ran where I was trying to.
Powers.
Yeah, Joey just front ran where I was the plane I was trying to land. That's okay.
I'm sorry.
You set it up perfect. Holland. This is like, again, this thing got 240,000 views. It's not even been live for 24 hours. Holland blowing an easy chance after cutting his hair. You read about this kind of thing in the Bible. So yeah, he had his long Viking locks and cut it before the game, and then went. They did win. They came back. They were down 1-0 most of the game. I think they scored like the 84th minute, and then scored in stoppage time to win 2-1. But yeah, Holland was shut out, and so everyone that rostered him in our fantasy leagues were down bad following week 1. But yeah, it is. This was to my point of how great football Twitter is this is just like one, and this isn't like even PvP or taking a shot at anyone else, but yeah, it's great. It really is. Like the games were fun. I enjoyed watching the games, but I probably took more enjoyment out of football Twitter, because some of these fans, like they're just funny. Like, yes, they're jabbing their rivals or the teams that they're not a fan of, but they do so with like just great humor. Some of it's just wit, like the Samson quote there, but a lot of them are like really, really funny posts dunking on the memes are all time. Big fan. But let's do this. We've talked sports long enough. For those of you that want a deeper dive into week 1 of EPL and NFL training camp and preview season preview, tune in tomorrow at 10:30 Eastern. Ben and I will go deep. Steve does add, we've had like 7 national champions in 8 years. How is college football ruined? I think Georgia has been the only repeat national champion in 13 years. It's way better than the fake rules that let Bama players in the back door. So I will say this, I think, yes. I think it's also, and now this isn't just like speculation. A lot of these players have come out and said this, like in the SEC, a lot of these schools were paying players for years, while the Big Ten played it up and up and like gave some players the tattoos that resulted in suspensions and cost people their careers over free tattoos and memorabilia. But I think the SEC was doing this for years, like, car dealers would pay off players. Whereas the difference now, you got these Big Ten schools, they're not car dealers. They're, they don't own a few car dealerships. They're like, they founded some of the most successful companies in the world. They're like Fortune 500 CEOs and a lot more wealth. And now that everyone's doing it, I think we may still see like difference of champions. I think what will, and it's not ruined. I just think it's changed so much that hard for me. And I know this is going to sound really weird coming off the backs of Indiana and their quote unquote Cinderella run, but Indiana is one of those schools that has insanely deep pockets. Like they can go buy whoever they want now. And I just think those that don't have extremely wealthy boosters, I don't know how you compete in this era. It will be like, a minor league team with no payroll going and trying to compete against the Dodgers. Like could they win 1 out of 100 games? Yeah, sure. But to actually win enough games to make the college football playoff and then run deep, I think like it's highly likely that the college football playoff is the teams with the biggest payrolls. And whatever, that's fine for those teams. I think where we're heading, what I'd love to see in college football is make that promotion relegation. Tear the whole thing down and start from first principles and rebuild college football, the landscape. And I don't take issue with how it is today, but if like, I can't even think of a good example of a team recently that was like a Cinderella story. I think that, and I don't think they should have salary caps or anything, or salary minimums or NIL minimums. It would be too difficult to do because there's so many teams. I think the format and the leagues, the structure, the playoffs, I think it could use a reinvention with the new rules, taking NIL into consideration. And that way, some of these teams who, quite frankly, it's probably not even the top 25. Like there's teams that are probably going to be ranked in the preseason top 25 that have 0 chance or 0.1% chance of actually winning a national championship. Kind of sucks for those players, those fans, where maybe there's a second tier, like a Champions League, where they could actually compete and maybe win a national title. That's not, the semi-pro league that's become these Power 6 schools. Let's. I know we have some other hands, but Steve's always pressed for time, and
yeah, it's not even Power 6 anymore. It's only
Power
like
4.
Power 4 now.
Mm-hmm. Steve, thoughts on this?
What data are you guys basing this on? It's like the opposite of what you guys are saying right now. Like it's like look, I look at the playoff. Look at like the teams that are making the playoff. Look at the regular season and the teams that are getting upset. Where now a good player like Ohio State is a real problem this year because they have Julian Sain, who was a Heisman finalist starting last year, didn't play bad, but didn't play great in big games. Tavion St. Clair was a top 5 recruit, and he may go to another school and end up playing somewhere else because the rules are letting players do that nowadays. Now, I think there should be player contract options, which keeps people there longer. I think they need to have probably a collective bargaining agreement because of the direction it's gone. I agree, like the tight end, everyone's got their panties in a bunch because the tight end from the Browns that got cut is going to go back and try to play at LSU. Maybe he will be able to, maybe he won't. We don't know the answer to that yet. But like, I don't think there's any 3 separate national championships in the past 3 years from the Big Ten who were not competitive during the old rules when they didn't pay his players under the table. Like I said, 7 in the last 8 years that are different. Georgia being the last repeat champ is sort of an artifact of that last era. And almost didn't go back to back if the Ohio State kicker could have made that field goal at because they would have ultimately ended up beating TCU as midnight struck. So I think like I don't think, and again, I know you guys got there's a lot to cover for topics in crypto, but like I don't think there's any data. If you look at the regular season and how competitive some of these teams are, like you can say Indiana has deep pockets. Indiana in 2 years with a coach and transfer players from James Madison University turned around a program and won a national title. If that doesn't tell you that it's in a good place right now, Notre Dame, who hasn't been relevant for years, is a lot of people's pick to win the national title this year. Like, I think like it's, I don't know. Like, I just think that there is there's not really like, this is a feeling. This is sort of like respectfully, like a little bit of the boomer take of like, players are getting paid. In my day, they got a free college education type take versus like, hey, these guys make millions of dollars for other people. There's probably going to be a change where they're making too much money. And I'm not saying that because they shouldn't make all the money in the world. It's just not sustainable. Charles Barkley made this comment where he's like, I can't write a $1 million check to Auburn every single year for these guys. It doesn't work that way. So I get it. But like, I would just say like this, like college football is ruined. Just call it the NFL league, this, that, and the other. I don't think there's any information or data that would support that.
Yeah, I don't think it's ruined. I just think it's because it's changed so much. I think there's an opportunity for it to be like some tweaks, be restructured from understanding that the new landscape. And I do think like it's great these players get paid. They should get paid. I just think that it's relatively new. We've only seen this for a couple of years. And you're talking like Texas is going to have an NIL budget of almost $50 million this year, which is fine. But that's like over $10 million more than Ohio State, for instance. So imagine like other schools that are playing Texas with a almost like they're getting close to like NFL type levels of compensation. And there's schools in the SEC that they're in like the low 20s. Like Texas has more than double the budget. And I guess, hey, it also plays out similar in professional sports as well, i.e. the Dodgers. But
but can I push? But I would say like I understand this like desire to like tinker and whatever.
Like contracts, like some sort of contract.
It's gotten them. It's gotten them clocked by Ohio State 2 years in a row, who had a lower budget, and so it's not like that's like mattered in the long run. Now maybe they'll win this year. They're going to probably be favored at home, and I get that, even though Ohio State's number one in the country. So like that happens. Like, but it hasn't gotten them to the point where the other teams aren't competitive with them. So we'll see if it becomes a problem. But I think this is one of those things where it's like it's the old adage where it's like when you're walking through the woods and you see a fence, you could be like, damn it, that's in the way. I want to knock it right down right now. Or you could say like, maybe that fence is there for a reason. Like, I don't think we need to immediately make these changes until we see how everything plays out. Because like right now, it has made the sport more competitive on a week-to-week basis. I think there's way bigger problems in college football than this. I think expanding the playoff is a big problem. I think the fact that, especially if they expand the playoff, Ohio State and Michigan probably don't make sense to even play starters at certain points. I think the fact that they're basically saying championship games are becoming pointless because of the way they're doing the playoff and expanding it. I think all of those are bigger problems. But the actual on-field games, if you look at them, like Vanderbilt didn't used to be able to compete with Alabama. They got a guy in an NIL deal who played his face off. Like, it's not an anomaly anymore where there are competitive teams week in and week out. And so I just think like when we're coming off Indiana, who before Cignetti got there was quite literally the worst team in the history of college football statistically, the worst record, won a national championship 2 years after he did there with a bunch of transfer players from James Madison University. It's really hard to be like, everybody's just buying championships now, because that's not what's happening. So I think it's like, I understand like the desire to make some changes and things, but like, let's just pump the brakes on something that's actually working quite well and is a super entertaining product on a regular basis. And now you have like all these competitive games with more teams being more competitive because that star player, like now players who say, I want to start, yes, they can go to Ohio State or Alabama or wherever it is and say, I'm going to sit and I'm going to learn, I'm going to start. Or they can say, you know what? I want to go to like UCLA, or like UCLA might be good this year because they got Nico coming back and he was a top recruit and he wasn't happy at Tennessee. And so like there is that sort of like thing where it's like it's changing the game theory and the dynamics. And so I'd rather see this play out before we start throwing out the entire system and saying like, that's it, this stinks, is ruined. I just had to come up and defend this sport just because like I hear like the game is ruined and this person's going back. What even is this? It's like Indiana won last year. Like, let's just be happy that we're seeing some great competitive football across the board.
Yeah, to be fair, I do not think it is ruined. I think there's a lot of good changes. I just like one small tweak that I think we agree on is I don't know exactly if it's a contract or what it is, but some of the NIL stuff is just silly. Like the guy going to the NFL and going back to college, kind of silly as it is now. It seems like a loophole. The players signing a big NIL deal and then leaving before even their first snap. And then as I understand it, still keeping the money in a lot of those cases. That seems broken. But
yeah, they need a collective bargaining agreement, which I think is like, that's the feedback. Get me a collective bargaining agreement. Show me like what actual like rules are in place, because right now it's the Wild West, but I mean, that's what you need to do is like, unfortunately, when you get to the point where people are getting paid and they decide that and they're 18-year-olds who can make money, then you need to have a collective bargaining agreement and you need to figure out what you allow and what you don't. And I think on, they'll have to figure out like the coaches and everyone else to figure out like the players, by the way, it's going to be interesting to say because who's going to be the ones, because the coaches probably would gladly take an NFL tight end. And the players would say like, well, if I don't make it in the NFL, I'd like to come back. So it'll be interesting to see who maybe dies on that hill or who decides that's what's important. But I agree, like going to the NFL and coming back, maybe there could be rules about like if you get cut in training camp, like it makes it so that you didn't make a career-altering decision. You can go back to school up until a certain point. I don't know. Like there's a lot of things that need to be fixed about that. The recruiting cycle is a problem. Look, I mean, we had Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss for LSU when Ole Miss was in the playoff because the recruiting cycle had started and the recruiting cycle starts. So I think there's like, I could give you like a dozen things to fix before college football, before some of like the things here. And I would just contend like there are many things that are broken, but like the competitive nature of who can win a national title, I could give you like 10 teams that could win. Like Texas Tech, like Ole Miss is, Chandler's coming back. Like there's a lot of teams there. Miami, a lot of people have winning. Notre Dame, Ohio State, obviously. Indiana's right back there. Michigan might make the playoff if Underwood takes a step. So it's like there are as many competitive teams on this playing field. And like it's not 3 or 4. It's not. By the way, in the old system, by the way, you know who could win the national title? Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia. Occasionally there will be a pop-up like, oh, Florida State, hey, Jameis Winston's here. Like, it's way more competitive than a 14 playoff with 3 or 4 teams who got all the opportunity to win it while everybody else got smoked under the table. Look at the national titles before even 10 years ago, 8 years ago. So I would just like say the system has improved if you look at the fact that like it is not normal in this modern era to have 7 different national champions in 8 years. Like that just doesn't happen. And then before that, there were other people who won again, but like they weren't repeat year after year until we go all the way back to Bama in like 2012. So like it is more competitive right now than it has ever been. So that's all I'd say is like before we like go trying to like tweak a product that is working out relatively well for the most fan bases, I would just, I don't know, I would just pump the brakes. That's all. The data doesn't support it. I'll let you guys get to actual crypto topics.
No, I do agree. Definitely a better product than it was. I like the changes. It just still, it feels like we're in between the changes. It feels like some of this stuff is good. We agree, hey, this was a step in the right direction. It's just the whole sport and everything hasn't changed along with it. And you use the example of like, Ohio State's probably going to lose an elite quarterback because they've got 2. And why would you say the backup for OSU when you can go get a 7-figure paycheck somewhere else and be the starter? It's one thing for Ohio State. I think where what I feel for isn't the Ohio States, the Bamas of the world, rather the smaller school who identifies that diamond in the rough. They've got a superstar. The chances of them keeping them even for a couple years is now probably slim to none. Hence going back to like some sort of a collective bargaining, some sort of a deal where if the university is going to give these players so much money, it should be a 2-way commitment. Like they should at least commit to, oh, they're going to be here a year and I don't think they should have to sit out a year either. I don't know the answers. It feels like we're kind of in between the way it was.
Yeah, because what you described isn't solved by anything. What you described happens. It's just the player used to have to sit out a year. So there was disincentivization there versus what I think we're both saying, which is let's just get them signing contracts. And a guy can say, I'm going to take less money, but that less money means I can only have to be here a year, or I have the opt out, or I have like sort of my idea of like, a transfer clause that I can do whenever I want. Or you think a guy like Jeremiah Smith, who's like the great Ohio State receiver, he could have left Ohio State for way more money. Like Miami offered him like $20 million, some insane number. And he said, no, you know what? I'm going to stick through. I do think the salaries are out of control. Not saying they shouldn't make the money. I want the kids to make all the money. But there is this thing where there's a graphic where you can look at like the top 10 draft picks of the NFL and how most of them are making less money than the top college paid players, which is an odd one. So one, does that incentivize people to stay in college the way that like people like Matt Leinart did? Maybe because they're getting paid, but also because they were like living in LA as the QB of the Trojans, winning a national title, right? Heisman Trophy. But I think like what you just described happened anyway. Like the good players do leave. The transfer players do leave. Like Lorenzo Styles Jr., who played for Ohio State with his brother Sonny Styles, transferred from Notre Dame to Ohio State and won a national championship beating Notre Dame. Like that happens regardless. So I do think, to your point, like we're in this in-between phase. Totally agree. I think there need to be contracts. Totally agree. I think that would change it, and then people can decide what's important to them. And I think that keeps coaches accountable and schools accountable too. But yeah, it's a very like interesting situation, and I think that like again, it's about as fun as it's been in a long. Like right now, I can tune in on Saturday and see competitive football across a lot of teams because you're like again, Tavion St. Clair like. He may end up at a top school, but if a top school doesn't need a quarterback, he may end up at another Big Ten school. And then that's interesting. I mean, where did James Peoples transfer? Penn State?
Oh, I didn't know this.
It's like, so like he was a 5-star, didn't get the 4-star, didn't get the reps at Ohio State. He's going to go play for Penn State. Penn State's like almost not an elite program, but a very good program. And he can be good there.
Yeah, no, I think we're mostly in agreement. And also, even if we're not, or even if we did talk football for too long this morning, big fans in the chat. Mel, in particular, says, miss hearing you come in with your hot takes. All that being said, we do have to talk a little bit of crypto this morning. And Store also loves how much you hate Notre Dame. I think we have, what do we have to attribute our Notre Dame hatred of? Is it go back to the Eddie George year?
I attribute Notre Dame hatred, and it's not even like hatred per se. Like, I'm not a fan. My problem with Notre Dame is like they ultimately have no idea what they actually are as a football program. It's a little bit like what Michigan is mostly, is that you're like bragging about like eras that are long past 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, Notre Dame, first of all, Ohio State has like, there's not even a good word to describe how bad they've beaten Notre Dame, so I'll just make one up. Womple stomped. I think Ohio State has womple stomped Notre Dame in pretty much every game that they played against them for the past, I don't know, 20 years. So like, that's a fun little thing for us to begin with. But like, you know, sans like the one close game that they had where they had the comeback where Ryan Day said, I want to see where Lou Holtz is now, the Kyle McCord game where he tried to give it away and didn't. But like, the fact of the matter is like, Notre Dame has not been a real competitive football team. They went to the national title game against Ohio State. They weren't competitive. They had one really fun opening drive and celebrated, and Riley Leonard threw up because it was so hard. And then Ohio State proceeded to score like 28 straight. It's like, they just haven't been true. And I think this year they can be, but like, my problem is Notre Dame is the easy, like last year's a great example of why everyone hates Notre Dame. They had the easiest schedule ever. They lost their only two competitive games. They had one of the easiest schedules in the country, lost their only two competitive games, their only two good games. And then Marcus Freeman, love him to death, Buckeye linebacker. Marcus Freeman's up there saying, I can't explain this. I don't understand it, guys. I wish I could give you a reason why this is happening. It's like, the reason it's happening is because you guys played a non-competitive schedule, played two competitive games and lost them. And then it's Notre Dame in a microcosm. It's like, my brother and I joke around because we'll like win Halo against these bad players, and then we'll play these people who are like sharks. They'll beat the crap out of us, and we're like Notre Dame. Like, that's basically the analogy. It's like they're a dog with the biggest bark, but when it comes time to play real competition, almost invariably they just don't come out. And like maybe that'll change, right? That's just part of it. But I think that's why I'm frustrated. Is like there's teams like Bama. Come, you know, you can talk some trash. And Georgia, you can talk some trash. And Clemson for years until recently, blah, blah, like all these teams. Like Notre Dame is like a tier 3 maybe school as far as like their competitive nature goes nowadays, like in the past like 20, 25 years. If that, and like they talk like they're like number one. And I think that's the part that gets people frustrated is like there are a good college football school. They're like a Penn State, maybe. I don't know, like something like that. Like they're just not there. So I think that's what pisses people off is like when somebody talks the biggest game, it's like as a Browns fan, I'm not going to tell you we're going to win the Super Bowl next year every single year. It's like sort of the Notre Dame play.
I mean, I agree with the Notre Dame take. They're very, very much so an entitlement there. This might be my hottest take of all time on this show, which is saying something. I don't even know if I can get a 2027 futures right now on who wins the 2027 Super Bowl. If I could, I would open up a market on the Browns. I think it's actually if they find a quarterback, their roster might be the most talented young roster in all of the NFL. I think they've nailed the draft this year. Last year, I was wrong. The trade moving the number 2 pick was the right move, and I think the Browns are going to surprise some people. It's probably not going to be this year, but next year.
The Browns are going to be what the Browns were last year. Last year, a lot of teams will tell you, like, they didn't really like playing the Browns because the defense was so good that it was like they would be competitive for a half against everybody, and we're like, watch out for the Browns, and they win like 3 or 4 games. Like, I agree. I think the roster has like so much talent. Running back situations, okay. Tight ends, very talented. Wide receivers, very talented. Offensive line is okay. But the defense is so good at all levels. And like, I don't know, Jared Verse is going to have a massive year this year, and they're still going to win like 3 games and try to get Arch Manning, I think, unless the only hope is that if Shador is somehow surprising because he has a lot of arm talent, it's just Shador, I've never been a huge believer. I'd like to be a believer. He has athleticism and he's got a big arm. He just hasn't put it together from where I sit. And so like, I would love that. Like, I would love it, but I just think like, I agree. Like the Browns are like the ultimate, like it sounds like a quarterback away type thing. It's like, If the Browns have an average quarterback, they'd be like at least a 500 team based on the talent they have. It's just they don't have an average quarterback.
Yep. No, I agree. With an average quarterback, they're 500 and making a push for the playoffs. With a good quarterback, a great quarterback, they're giving all those position credits. We'd be remiss if we didn't at least shout out the wide receivers. I think there's a world where KC Concepcion and Boston are there's a world where they're the top 2 wide receivers in this draft class. And it's saying something because while the draft class was weak, the wide receivers are actually pretty good. And yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Anyways, I digress. Bitcoin just hit 29K once again. We are all the way back for this next season on-chain. On-chain activity popping off everywhere. It's not just Robinhood Chain. Inc. had its moment over the weekend, all across the board. And not only did Bitcoin hit 79K live here on the show, getting that coffee with Captain Pump, we've not completely validated this yet, but in terms of a US dollar, yes, there's been larger weekly closes on a percentage basis, but as far as looking at US dollar basis, largest Bitcoin weekly candle of all time. Pretty incredible, massive week. You know, the highest level, basically, essentially 60K to 80K in a week, which is rather insane. Trying to get it. There we go. 60K to 80K in a week. Just absolutely bananas. And it doesn't stop there. Well, at least not as of this morning. It seems to be, oh, did I say 29K? My bad. 79K would be more accurate. Sorry to freak anyone out. Hopefully you didn't run to go sell your Bitcoin because you think it hit 29K. Not only is Bitcoin popping off, on-chain activity is really popping off. And it's also, again, not just Robinhood Chain, not just Inc. Chain. FOMO become the #1 trading terminal by daily market share. This is interesting and going to lead into one of the other stories I want to talk about, because I think a lot of people on the timeline were talking about Ming and congratulating him, celebrating his conviction play for CyberLeak, where, if you're not familiar, he a few weeks ago had a post, let me pull it up here, where he basically started a trading journey. Started with $1,000 and said, can I turn $1,000? Can I buy a house? Starting with $1,000. Probably good. Go back and watch the minute-long video whenever you get a chance. But basically, for those that are not watching the video, I'll quickly read this here. So, can I buy a house starting with $1,000 over the last few years? Trading has changed my life in ways I never expected. I've paid off student loans in a single click, made more money than I ever thought possible with that quick, and even turned a small account into my dream car. But lately, I've been thinking about something different, a home. There's something special about having a place you can call yours. It's a goal I found myself paying more attention to recently, so I figured, why not try it publicly? Started with $1,000. I'm going to attempt to build a California down payment entirely through trading. At this point, you might buy the whole house with cash. All this challenge will be public on FOMO. Along the way, we'll be bringing traders I respect, learn their systems, challenge their ideas, and see what happens when you combine information, conviction, a little bit of insanity. This will be fun. This was a paid promo, by the way. And this is what I was saying, like, while Ming has been all over the timeline, I haven't seen people giving FOMO enough credit for their marketing. They've crushed it. Like, their marketing campaign on this, it's not just this. It's like, people probably are maybe aren't aware that Frank is essentially a paid KOL, paid by FOMO. Whether they cut him a direct check or they funded his account, I don't know those specifics, but they did. He's getting, I think, 50% of all fees. At a minimum, it's an affiliate link. He's getting 50% of all fees of people he refers to the app. But they, a lot of things to unpack here when it comes to FOMO. One, this could have been Base. Like, what FOMO is executing the Base app and coin everything better than Base. Like, Base was early. It was just poorly executed. But Base app they were early to this whole SocialFi, this copy trading type social platform. It was just poorly executed. And instead of listening to the feedback from the market and users, they just kept beating the drum that they missed the product market fit, but they just barely missed it. And now it comes along FOMO after the fact, and not only did it pass his base, but Pump Fun. It's become the number one place to trade. So much so it's kicked off this whole entire meta. And my post a little bit ago this morning was facts tell, stories sell. I believe this story. Now, Ming's been very humble about it. He's like, hey, it's not real till it's real. And he's got to close the trade. He's going to got to buy a house. But let's just hypothetically play this out. Whether his trade goes up or down from here, if he closes out and able to buy a home, that story of this guy created, and the $1,000 he started the account might not even his. Like FOMO probably seeded the account or paid him more than $1,000. I'm sure they paid him more than $1,000 to do this one paid promo. There's probably more of an ongoing campaign with him, I'm guessing. But even if it was just this one post and video, I mean, I haven't seen Ming's rate sheet, but I would be shocked, floored if he, if it was less than $1,000. So let's just say the whole thing paid for by FOMO. So essentially, it's not even his $1,000. I mean, it is, because whatever. And you follow me. He's going to buy a house, trading in public, sharing the story. And I think that will, people will be talking about that for years on other social apps. This story is more than just flexing a P&L. Like, we've seen that done before. And I think that kind of turns people off. In this case, because of not just the trade, but how he did it. He kept buying, the conviction there, where it wasn't some cabal trade. It was just he had a thesis. He doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on the thesis, and ultimately it's going to hit. The trade was CyberLeak, which is the personality who is leaking the GTA 6 videos. And yeah, long story short, he's ran this meme bag up to like $500,000. And I do believe this story is going to onboard a lot of people to on-chain trading. And while I know it like the tech's been there for a couple of years, like the ease of trading, like to single click or Apple Pay, I think we're hitting escape velocity. And we got to keep in mind, like all these social trading apps and, from Pump Fund to everything else, they kind of come out in a bear. Like we get another Bitcoin, crazy week, which we should. If you look at history, here's some other data support. If we look at Bitcoin after a 20% weekly candle, it was 23% last week, nearly $20,000. If you're not, it's time to wake up if you're still not convinced. Bitcoin after a plus 20% weekly candle, what the following days did, all 9 times since 2019 that a weekly candle closed over 20%. So 9 times the Bitcoin weekly candle has closed north of 20%. The following day, on average, it was up another 1.7%. With a 56% win rate. After 2 days, it was up 3.4% was the average, median 1.2. 89% win rate. After a week, up 8.8%, 67% win rate. After 2 weeks, up double digits, 10.5% on average, 89% win rate. Over 21 days, up 11% on average, 78% win rate. And after 2 months, 8 weeks, up 32% on average, 23% being the median. I'm not saying history repeats itself, but it often does rhyme. And I think this is a good supporting data that says this is probably more than just a short pump, probably more than just a dead cat bounce. This, I think, so many things, so many tailwinds. Oh, by the way, the money printer's coming back on. Becent's going to pump something like $1 trillion into the bond market. Money printer go burr, may not be great for the US dollar and inflation, should be great for Bitcoin. Just so much, forget Clarity Act getting put on pause, maybe getting killed. You've got the SEC coming out with their proposal. There's just so much positive stuff happening and leading into this, kind of to tie it all together, kind of like college football. The game has changed. Different than it was before. Some may not like it as much. Some may prefer the trading environment against plumbers and garbage men. Some may prefer it in the new modern era. it's definitely different. And Quocheck says her base app was bought by community members. That'd be interesting. Savi Crypto definitely deserves a shout out. Appreciate you putting out that data out there. You should go check out Savi's dashboard if you haven't yet. Primarily, at least the one I've seen is Stonkbrokers, but I know he's done a lot more. That's just a good one. And I think this on-chain activity comes from many fronts. It comes from social trading. It comes from stories like start turning $1,000 into a house, which I know that's not new for crypto, but how it's being documented, how it is being not gated, not cabalish, but like it's things are. I think Whale had I'm not attacking Whale here. I saw someone else said this was a really bad take, and they disagreed with Whale's take. Whale said something to the effect like it's never been harder to go from 0 to 1 in crypto. I couldn't disagree more. I think to go from 0 to 1 in crypto is arguably never been easier, because you're seeing a lot of these. Now it's not also it's like to level set. It's not just as simple as just copy trading KOLs. That's not the game. But I do believe there's more information. There's more data. It's more transparent to more people, because you don't have to go read BlockScan to understand where. You don't have to go get a subscription to one of these fancy wallet tracking services. FOMO's free to use, and it's not the only one, but that's clearly become the leader. But in addition to tokens and what they're doing, in addition to this tokenization super cycle, which we are going to talk about next, it's also speaking of the tokenization super cycle, part of it is physical collectibles. This was a post from Zier a little while ago. Said, I hate to say this, but if Chinese can fake the Chinese exclusive cards as well, pretty sure they can fake your valuable modern English cards too. Basically, the overwhelming influx of counterfeit Chinese exclusive Pikachu cards, markets flooded with extremely convincing fakes, almost impossible to distinguish from real copies. Even professional grading companies have authenticated counterfeit cards as genuine. Because of this, the cards are rapidly crashing in value and trust. Do not buy these cards. This is probably extreme, but blockchain fixes this.
I don't want to interject and cut you off too much, but I very much disagree with him as someone who's been part of the TCG world for quite a while, but I'll let you finish your point first.
My point is, while that may be exaggerated a little bit, may not be as extreme, I think it is real in the sense that paper cards can be fake. This isn't just news. So can sneakers. Blockchain, whether it's purely digital or a physical tie-in to blockchain, so that you can authenticate where it's coming from, that it is a real one. I like the highest level blockchain tech can fix the issues with counterfeit, whether it's moving to Panini blockchain or finding a way to track supply chain to validate that these are in fact real sneakers, real cards, et cetera, et cetera. Go ahead and get in here though, if you'd like.
No, your point is 100% correct. And I think for a lot of people, they just don't really realize that once you tokenize something, the contract's set. Like smart contracts are one of the greatest inventions known to man. And there is, some nuance there. Like my opinion is, I've seen Magic Gathering and Pokemon for years and how they printed cards and like, okay, they're going to move the printer to Japan or they're going to move it to one country versus another. And every single print facility is a little bit different from another one. So I fully believe that, okay, the Chinese counterfeiters might be really good at faking the Chinese exclusive cards because they're probably in close proximity to those printers. But that doesn't mean that they can just, suddenly cause a market crash by printing cards for other games like One Piece or Magic or Lorcana or anything like that, and then causing a sudden crash because it is spread out across many different printers across many different countries. But when it comes to tokenization, I think as the barrier gets lower to tokenize things and for, gas transaction speeds and stuff like that, you're going to see more people kind of seeing what Robinhood has done, bringing users on chain and bringing on chain to IRL users.
and kind of make that easier for corporations like Hasbro to be like, you know what? Our next game, why don't we allow people to digitize or tokenize their cards? Like, I see that as a very big possibility in the next, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think all this, it's not what is causing this tokenization super cycle. It's like one spoke in the wheel. It's one more catalyst that's going to lead. Because I think it's also like, you mentioned Hasbro. Maybe they've had these conversations, maybe they've been thinking about it, but then they go back to like someone in the boardroom said, oh no, most of our consumers think crypto's a scam. They think NFTs are a scam. We can't do that. It's too risky. I don't know if that's happened at Hasbro. I'm certain that conversation has happened at some of these large corporations, these established Web2 brands, and has either caused them to pull the plug on something or not move forward with something. I think where this starts to change is very soon, maybe not now, maybe not even 2026, but I think very soon, blockchain technology, tokenized assets go from, oh, that's scammy, that's just some dumb meme coin or some NFT that has no inherent value. I think the perception shifts from that, from a lot of people who aren't active participants, to, oh, this is just better tech. It's like it's going to shift from, oh, of course we're going to use broadband internet. It's way better than dial-up. Like it's that level of evolution. And I think the masses are going to start to realize that, partially because of this tokenization super cycle. When you see, oh, if blockchain tech is good enough for stocks, it's probably okay for our digital our physical collectibles. If it's good enough for the most valuable to trade shares of the most valuable companies in the world, it's probably okay for us to launch a TCG game that has blockchain components to it, that has digital assets tied into the platform. And I will get to the all hands. We'll get a Ken in here next. I do just want to briefly play. There's it's like a 46-second clip from Vlad, CEO of the CEO of Robinhood. Let me share this. I'm curious if I've not played around with the volume yet. It's supposed to be easier on StreamYard now. Let me drop down. I'll go full screen here, and I'll play this 46 seconds, and then we'll bring a Ken into the conversation. This is Vlad, the CEO of Robinhood. This interview, I think, just took place. I don't know if it was Friday over the week. It was recently, real recent interview from Vlad. This is Vlad, CEO of Robinhood.
The chain, but then all the developers have created all kinds of unique pools that we didn't even think would exist, and all kinds of protocols where, for example, if you hold a meme coin, you just get stock tokens airdropped to you, right? So they've like connected meme coins, core cryptos, and the stock tokens, and composed them into unique products that, yeah, we wouldn't have anticipated creating. We probably wouldn't have thought of to make ourselves. So it's Robinhood Chain is this combination of developer platform with financial primitives like high yield and stock tokens, the chain. But then all the developers have created all kinds of unique pools that we didn't even think would exist, and all kinds of protocols where, for example, if you hold a meme coin, you just get.
Sounds, dare I say, stockbrokers coded. Yes, I'm biased. Yes, I hold a couple stockbrokers. But it is more than just one collection when you're seeing derivatives, not just on Robinhood Chain, but it was like most of what popped off on Kraken's chain over the weekend was ink brokers, and this idea of like, I'm trying. I still don't have the best way to get my thoughts and how I feel about this cycle out. I'm still wordsmithing this in public, so bear with me here. I will get it down here in the next couple weeks. I promise. Well, I don't promise. I'll do my best to get it down in the next couple weeks. Imagine if all the activity, all the like 10,000 NFTs I have in my wallet, 90, 95, 97, 99% of them have went to zero. But they weren't always zero. There's some like never, they were DOA and it was a free mint and they just never took off, something like that. But a lot of them had moments. And imagine if there was alignment throughout history, and because I don't know, like even remove like the apes, mutants, etc. Talk about like cool cats and doodles and ones that have they had a ton of trading volume, they ran way up, and now the floor's down under an ETH. And again, also everything on a spectrum there, wide range. But imagine if during that entire time, all that trading volume, a percentage of it even, went back into rewards for the community. Marketing rewards is what makes things compliant in today's environment. Like I can't even begin to imagine how much, if this, and I know it's like, obviously that wasn't a thing and tokenized stocks weren't even a thing, but I'm just saying, like, imagine if this NFT season 3 is anywhere even remotely close to season 2 in terms of volume. And now, instead of hoping for an airdrop of a fungible token that in most cases won't have any inherent value, the rewards are tokenized stock. Now, even if your NFT goes to zero in a year, if you collected even a few $100s of tokenized stock, like that stuff adds up. Like compounding is real. And this is so new. We're just beginning to see in a few ecosystems what it can be. Like we have a glimpse now into what the future could hold. And I do think this is much bigger than stockbrokers and a few derivatives. It's not just, and I also say that stockbrokers didn't have this run up just because tokenized stocks. I think that's what's going to get them the endorsement from Vlad officially. I think that's probably what leads to a Robinhood chain, an actual listing, and more. But I think it was an experimentation that went right, and I think now we're seeing a lot of others copy it with, in some cases, different stuff, different mechanics, different, not just a blatant fork, but the idea of alignment, the word I was beating the drum for the last several years, is now there's a real path for new brands and legacy brands to drive that alignment and actually reward your supporters, your holders. Like we've talked so much, shout out to Steve and Scott for the Everything token, about next generation loyalty rewards programs. We're now here to where those programs don't have to just, if you're a loyal customer, we're going to reward you with NFTs, or we're going to reward you with a badge or something that you can collect, or we're going to reward you with maybe a fungible token in a few cases. But as we know, that was often just a one-time liquidity event, or there was a slow drip. But it was it was often a race to the X's because there wasn't any inherent value. There was no flywheel. There was no ecosystem. It was just another token. Now things have changed so much, and like today it's stocks. But if you're like me and you believe most of the world's coming on chain, like everything's going to be tokenized. It's just better, from collectible cards to stocks and everything in between. Like right now, Ming is having a moment, becoming a main character because he's going to turn $1,000 into a house. There's a world where people are doing a gotcha machine. They're doing the BZ claw pool and they win a house, or they go into FWA. By the way, there's a new mint mechanic. FWA, I think FWA mints today. We will get to the rest of the news. There's a lot happening today, including the Rec Traders reveal at 11 Eastern live on OSF stream. We'll get to all that. We might go a little over 10 o'clock today, but we'll get through everything. But that may sound crazy today, but bookmark it, clip this if you want. It's October 24th, 2026. I don't think it's going to happen in 2026. There's a lot of moving parts, especially if we're talking homes. It'd probably be for a home. Someone's probably going to win a car, title to a car in a gotcha type machine. But I think that's the path we're heading. Is everything comes on chain, everything's tokenized, and then you can plug anything into these DeFi mechanics. It's not just tokenized stocks. Like lower tier rewards can take on a whole new meaning, and I think we're starting to see, again, still wordsmithing this in public, So it's probably not landing with everyone. It's not even landing with myself to the level I'd like it to. But I do believe we're heading to a point where, like, this tokenization super cycle, at least when I say it, it's in my head, what I mean, it's far more than just tokenized stocks. Like, tokenized RWAs are more than just, it's going to be everything, or most assets will have some sort of version on chain, and very, very exciting time to be here. And what we'll spend the latter half of the show is how can we position ourselves beyond what exists today, beyond buying a stockbroker or picking up stockbroker token. How can we position ourselves to capitalize if this thesis that, hey, the world's coming on chain, we are entering a tokenization super cycle, what to be looking for? I'm going to hand it to Akeem, but the one thing I said that I would say to be looking for, or maybe not looking for, is just cheap derivatives. Not even derivatives, cheap mints, cheap, like, and some, this thing only is 0.001 ETH. Well, it may not seem like a lot to you, but if you mint out a collection of 10,000, you're handing the creator 6 figures. Like, you can still, and I think as things heat up more, and now it's not just one chain, but multiple chains. We got stuff minting today on ETH mainnet. We got stuff minting on Robinhood. We got stuff minting on Inc. Pranksy's coming back out of the woodworks, or the person who bought Pranksy's account is going to mint another cash grab, most likely, or attempt. Probably is going to not try to price it at 1 ETH, since that last time he did it was a crash and burn. But point is, there's going to be a lot of low effort cash grabs already. And if things continue to get up, we're going to see more and more and more. You can be selective. And some are just going to be low effort. This is just an NFT collection. Hey, if you like the art, have fun. Some are going to attempt to lean into this narrative. And, you're going to get tokenized stock. There has to be more than just that. Like, all that, the rewards come with volume and fees. And if there's no protocol, if there's no infrastructure, good luck. Okay, we collected 37. Like, there's blockchains that are doing like 37 whole blockchains, let alone NFT collections, that are doing like $37 a day in fees. Great. They're going to take half of it. They're going to go buy $18 of tokenized stock and distribute that amongst 10,000 NFTs. Like, there's going to be a lot of that. Von Fred asks, any links to point interested parties to Alpha on Inc? Yeah, I've got a few. I will share them in a bit. I would say, first thing I was going to say was Phonics. I think the first thing I would do, if you want to go position yourself for Kraken, is at least create a NATO account, which is a perp DEX. You don't have to trade perps, but I would go today, make at least one transaction, even if it's just buy something spot on NATO, so you hopefully qualify for like the minimum tier. It might be more than that, I don't know, but I would at least have an account created. We'll go back to more on this. I'm going to step away and refill my coffee and hand it to Ken. And then Ken, I can hear you. I just won't be able to. I won't be able to get back to the mic until I get back. So the mic is yours, and I'll let you know when I get back. GM, sir. Appreciate you jumping up.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I think so. Let's talk kind of from first principles, right? I think the fundamental innovation that at least the stockbroker ecosystem is attempting to make, and I'll make a declaration now: the stockbroker token is the base token of Robinhood chain. It's going to be like ETH for Ethereum, and the reason for that is that, first of all these protocols that are being built, so all the protocols that are normal primitives you're aware of, right? The aggregator, the marketplace, right, for exchanging tokens, the bridges, right? All that is being built in the stockbroker ecosystem, and stockbrokers own the protocols. They own a guaranteed share of the cash flows that get built in the ecosystem. That's a fundamental thing to understand, because there's no, other than the decentralized blockchains that have come before, almost every attempt at an L2, whether it's base, right, has been this ambiguous view around, okay, who actually owns those cash flows, right? I remember when base came out, there was always these questions of, Are they going to launch a token? Who's going to capture the margin? Who's going to capture a return? And I think Coinbase basically, right, captured the return. I think Robinhood has taken a different path where, they're saying, okay, we have this protocol. We want to bring RWAs on chain, but we're not necessarily going to build, right, the native stack. We're going to partner with established players across the ecosystem, right? So I think there are two things happening in parallel on Robinhood chain. You have, right, distribution channels that are established by established protocols like Uniswap, right, like Morpho, like, just look it up. You can see the volumes growing on these protocols where Robinhood is channeling a lot of its stablecoins into those protocols to generate yield. And so you have that market, right? It's big, established, it's going to be massive. But I think Stockbrokers gives you an alternative where you can own, right, the stack as an NFT holder, and you can contribute to that network. So I think the ownership alignment is a fundamental thing people need to really grasp. And I think the other thing too is that, right, whereas, for example, on Solana, you had Jupiter, you had all these separate instances, right? Jupiter, Jito, Meteora, all kind of distinct protocols with different sort of tokenomics and different approaches. What Stockbrokers has done is unify all of those under one umbrella, under one tokenomic primitive across the board for special projects. So you kind of know what you're going to get, and all that value kind of funnels down, ultimately, a large portion of it, to the stockbroker itself and the stockbroker holders. So that's a really important distinction, right? And then when you have that massive ownership alignment, when you have these PFPs, remember, PFPs were a great way to market. You see a punk, you see an ape, you'll know what that means. Like, you never had that with meme coins, you never had that with any other kind of primitive in crypto. Like, the power of the culture is attached to these images, and Stockbrokers has that. So they have the ability now to magnify all these DeFi primitives with one unifying, right, stockbroker, right? So not just the capital accumulation from fees, the cultural identification that can project marketing, right, that want people to be part of this club because that image carries so much cultural value plus the ROI, right? That's the first time I've ever seen that. A punk doesn't do that. I think the apes attempted to do that with Ape Chain, and like, so, you could see some things, and it does make sense, right? Because Simple Farmer was part of that ApeCo ecosystem and probably saw what worked, what didn't work, and now was able to kind of say, okay, this is what I think it should look like if I was building it from scratch, which is what he's done. So I think those are key things to really sort of hone in on, and I'll stop there and let other people comment.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great take, and I think, first I've heard it like to that extreme, like the stockbrokers becomes Robinhood chain, like ETH is to mainnet. That's maybe, I'd love to see it. Some are just going to like roll their eyes at that. I think just the thought of, okay, this is, as I said, I'm still attempting to. I've got a lot of thoughts in my head. It's a little headier too. This isn't.
So let me add a few more things on why I kind of made that statement to undergird it, right? So Robinhood has taken a very, very different approach than Base took, right? Robinhood launched in layer 2, right? They launched a stable coin. The very first product they launched in the US was a 7% APY stable coin that users on the native app can use today. Like, I have a Robinhood app. I can transfer cash into that app, or I can sell a stock. I can buy USDG, and I get 7%, right? Now, that product is the most superior yielding product in the United States, right? Money market accounts give you like 3.4%. Your savings account, your checking account gives you maybe a 3.2, something of that ilk.
If you're lucky.
Robinhood is, if you're lucky, right? And if you go into like a Capital One or some other technically enabled banks, right? So think about that where you have 40 million customers that trust you. You're giving them 7%, right? Of the $1 billion from USDG that's taken 6 weeks, right? $1 billion plus to get on chain with USDG. 400 million of that is customers aping into that 7% yield product.
How many Robinhood customers, like of the 30 million, do you think are even aware of this yet? Or how many, put it another way, how many do you think have no idea they could make 6-7% yield just on?
Very few.
I think that's
because very few, and I'll tell you why. Like literally, I go on the app, and like you're going to different screens trying to like load money, or you're trying to do all sorts of things, and you see all these pop-ups saying 7%. Like they're throwing it all over the app. At some point, you're like, okay, what is this 7%? Right? So again, I think over time, right, and it becomes this thing, like it becomes viral, right? Someone gets 7%, they tell their brother, are you in the 7% pool, right? It just kind of, word gets around, it gets amplified. And so as a first product to basically tap into a $4 trillion money market ecosystem, right? So the broader market, like there's over $4 trillion of money market accounts earning 3.3%, right? There's 400 million, your captive audience in Robinhood is your 40 million customers, right? With, I think the number is in the bill, it's definitely in the billions, like almost close to 100 billion. If I have to check myself because I wrote a whole tweet thread about this, but there's a large amount of captive audience there. You tap that in, bring it on chain. And then there's the bigger market of people in checking accounts, people in money market accounts, right? Eventually, the opportunity in the short term for Robinhood is to funnel as much of those into tokens. And there's a simple reason for that. When you do the math as to how you get that 7% yield, right? You know, they're white labeling the stablecoin on Paxos. That sits in treasuries, short-term treasuries, that yielding you like 4%, 4.25%, for example. So you have that, right, backing it. You bring it on chain, you stake that in Morpho, you get another like 4% native. You get 2% from Morpho distributing Morpho tokens to you. And so when you do the math, 4.4 is 8, right? 8 plus 2 is 10. That's 10%, right? Robinhood is giving you 7, right? Paxos probably gets, you know, I don't know, 1.5 points, 150 basis points for being the white label platform, right? People ask about FDIC insurance. That's irrelevant because I can take 50 basis points of that yield and buy insurance on that capital very easily, right? And so when you think about how you get to that 7%, even after distributing like all the expenses and catering for some level of insurance, even today, like Robinhood could still make 2 to 3% they put in their pocket that they weren't making today. Like today, your customer brings you their money, you put it in a sweep account that yields 3.3%. Most of that goes to the customer. So by virtue of this new tokenization, right, everyone is making an order of magnitude more money than they were making before. And so the incentive for Robinhood is to drive as much of that capital on chain. It goes into these protocols that are going to be massively inflated. Like, I don't think people have any idea of how big, right, these platforms are going to become, because this is not like us sloshing around on chain, ETH to Bitcoin, and kind of doing this round tripping. This is like tens, hundreds of billions of dollars that are going to come on chain. Like, if this law passes, which I think is going to pass, clarity, right? I think it's going to pass. It just seems like it's politically inevitable at this point. If this law passes, we have no idea how much capital is going to come on chain. Like, Robinhood has gotten us to over $1 billion in 6 weeks. I think Robinhood gets to over $5 billion at the end of the year if clarity passes.
I think that's easily a good target. I'm curious. Let us know in the chat. Do you think Robinhood chain has over 5 billion of TVL by December 31st, 2026, or under? The over/under set at 5 billion. If you're right, you win one of Akin's stockbrokers. If you're wrong, I don't know. We'll come up with your loser punishment. But a kid, he's not offering that up. But I do think 5 billion is probably a good. I would take the over. I think it can more than 5x between now and I say that not even knowing exactly what TVL base or any others have. I think that's possible, even if we don't get a clarity, even if we don't get this SEC proposal. Although I think that will that will probably be live by then. But I think when we say it's just warm, like I say this, I have Jay's post pulled up on screen here as well, where for as optimistic as I am, and as I think that the train has left the station, this is happening, it's also likely it doesn't happen as fast as we think. That's why I'm curious if you think 5 billion by the end of the year is crazy, or if maybe we're undershooting that. But Jay says less than 100 years ago, not everyone had indoor plumbing. it's easy to believe that within 50, all stocks will be on chain. Like, things take time. Like indoor plumbing seems like a no-brainer. It took a while to get mass adoption. The freaking refrigerator took forever to get any sort. Like, people had ice blocks delivered to their house, and people are still saying, nah, they were nah waving a refrigerator. It took years for that to hit critical mass, and then once it hit critical mass, 2-3%, it goes hockey stick up, and everyone has a refrigerator. And you're thinking, how can people live without this? It was the way it's been, and changes is different. So like things take a while to hit mass adoption. And while I think it's inevitable, it's going to happen, I think it's happening now. It's also, there's a world where this is 5 years out until this stuff actually starts infiltrating the masses.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, I mean, so I pulled the numbers, right? Robinhood customers today have 29.7 billion in cash sweep balances, earning them about 3.3%. Why would you not double that and take 7%? Right? So what I'm saying is basically, if, right, you do the math, less than a fifth of that capital like moves on chain, you get to 5 billion. And we already know the velocity, right? We already know that 400 million arrived in 6 weeks. So do the math. If that accelerates and there's clarity and there's all this hoopla and people are asking, what does this law mean? And Robinhood continues to sort of like, because again, Robinhood is incentivized to do this conversion because they're eating from it.
Yes.
Right. So they're going to do their best to transition. Right. And so I think 5 billion is, like you said, even without clarity, I think the acceleration is going to happen. I think 5 billion happens by the end of the year. Easy.
Yeah. Yes. I wholeheartedly agree. And I think, I guess looking at it in phases, I think the next phase, and we'll get Glassbox in here in a second, looking forward to hearing what you all are building on Robinhood chain. But what I think when we think about like this next phase, to go from 1 billion to 5 billion, that could happen with just Robinhood users. That could happen with the crypto natives plus Robinhood's user base of 30 million customers. To your point, they've got the cash is sitting there, and they're incentivized to earn double what they're making. But that's still 30 million ish. I don't know the exact number. Let's for sake of this story, we're going to say 30 million retail customers on the Robinhood app. That's still less than a tenth of the U.S. population. I think so. Like phase one is people who are already trading in Robinhood or Coinbase, and they're like one step away from on-chain activity. Then I think you've got probably 90% of the population, or let's say 75% of the population, if you combine, if every Robinhood user and every Coinbase user is there's no crossover there, which I'm sure there are. I've got both apps. I'm sure there's some though that, let's just say it's 75% of the population doesn't have either or. That subgroup of, and this is just talking US, it probably is going to need something like Clarity Act or SEC proposal going through, something that is another catalyst that gets those who already aren't on Robinhood or already aren't on Coinbase to come on chain. I will say that it could happen fast because it's much easier today than it's ever been before. Like the tech barriers have been essentially eliminated.
So I kind of buried the lead a little bit, right? So there's already like $7.5 billion of credit on chain, right? A lot of it coming from private credit, right? Today, without clarity, without a lot of the things that have happened over the last few months, right? So another category that I think, right, most folks on the TL don't see or realize is like a lot of the private credit funds, Apollo, right? The large guys that manage hundreds of billions of dollars of capital, right? They've already been tinkering. They've already sort of had products on chain. There's treasury funds, there's private credit, there's non-government debt, there's, right? And the way they did this, right, essentially many of them had to kind of create this trust banks where you hold the core asset in some sort of a trust, right? And then you can tokenize it. So that introduces this initial interim step. But I think with clarity, along with the stablecoin Genius Act together, you'll be able to do what Robinhood is essentially attempting to do, which is tie the tokenized asset, right, to the ability to redeem the real stock in real life. Like there's a lot of plumbing you have to do, right? But that makes it a superior product because the token holders will have a claim on the real asset that's like at some sort of custodian or intermediary, like in the US, like everyone has with regular stocks today. So that makes it a vastly superior product to a trust, where you have to sort of, right, by virtue of the term, trust the intermediary that's basically holding your bags and tokenizing it, right? And so my view is that when clarity passes and the tokenization standards become like, okay, we can basically tie the plumbing directly. And there are a few players doing that already, right? That to me is actually the bigger narrative, because that's where there's a lot of large private capital, right, that wants to come into the system to do the same things that Robinhood players are doing. Like they want to get into these large protocols and earn native yield on chain. They want to take their treasury backed assets or whatever is backing those assets, bring it on chain, get more yield, get broader distribution, right? Get into markets that you wouldn't naturally be able to. Like, look, the private credit fund that Apollo created, and I'll tell you this because I'm very intimately aware of this, right? They brought it on chain, and it wasn't made available in the US at all, right? Because there's not a lot of clarity, right, around that. But they're trying to go after, right, demand in Asia, demand in so many countries where it's hard for that demand to necessarily come into the US, right? Because it might come from, right, all sorts of interesting places, right? So there's a lot of, the reason why they launched that was to extend the net, to be able to get into Asia, to bring capital into those private credit funds. And they've done that to the billions of dollars like 12 months ago. So my view is that, again, what this does for not just folks on chain, what this does for the US financial system, and there's alignment with Treasury too, is that it extends the dollarization of the globe, right? The US dollars, right? So there's something called the euro dollar market. That's dollars that are being made offshore. They're actually kind of like a weird tokenization or like the OG token, right? The size of the euro dollar market globally is as large as the dollar market in the United States. And what the Treasury Secretary wants to do, which is why he's backing tokenization, right, and why the financial system is going to come rushing through the door, is he wants to extend the ability for Treasury to basically swallow that market. Because if you can tokenize a stablecoin in the US, if you can create a token that lets you get yield on chain, if that is superior to the yield you get on a Eurodollar market, which it is, if you legitimize it with the backing of the United States, right, if you insure these pools in whatever way, and I guarantee you we're going to start talking about FDI insurance at some point, FDIC, because it aligns with the mandate of Treasury to basically now capture the global market for dollars and have more control over it. And it gives Treasury the flexibility, like you were saying earlier on, with all the debt buying they're trying to do, but they're trying to basically collapse the long end of the yield curve, right? Drop long-term interest rates by redeeming them so that we kind of force interest rates down, right? That's a mechanism that Treasury can do to kind of circumvent the Fed not dropping rates, right? The Treasury owns the dollar market. They can manipulate that yield curve. And the way they manipulate that yield curve long term is owning a larger share of the global dollar market, right? Such that, for example, a lot of the problems we see in Japan, a lot of problems we see with, which is a huge US debt holder, right? They have now more control of those dollarized markets. They can make it more efficient, and it gives Treasury Secretary more power. And so that's why, in my view, again, look at where the alignment is. Look at what the smart folks are talking about. That's what gives me the confidence that the $5 billion I'm talking about for Robinhood, I think is natively something they can do by themselves, right? When the law passes, right, we're going to see a rush of tens of billions of dollars from private capital coming into the marketplace. Now, what does that do for everyone who's on chain? What does that do for anyone who's operating equidistant to those marketplaces? Like every market inflates massively. Like NFT season we had before is going to be nothing compared to what we see now, because as that capital is rushing in and people are kind of getting a return on that capital, they're going to go down the curve. They're going to want to buy things and want to see what's going on chain. And that's why I'm uber confident that, $5 billion is easily adoptable, is easily makeable. We're going to see hundreds of billions in the next couple of years.
That well said. So we had Oxy join us on stage as well. Glassbox, you are still there. As I say, I lost the hand, but I still see you. So we'll get. I think Oxy has a take on this. Also, I'm not sure if it's his first vibe code, but has a LP lens extension that he just shared. I'll pin that up top for anyone curious, but appreciate you sharing, Oxy. So we'll go Oxy, then we'll go Glassbox. And as I go to Oxy here, I do want to I'm gonna read this post I pinned up top for anyone who wants to read the whole thing. Maybe I'll just paraphrase. It's a longer post, but this is really when I'm per the title of this tokenization super cycle. It's not just Robinhood Chain. It's not just Robinhood users. I said it's like discovering YouTube in 2006. I think it launched in December of 2005. This post references imagine discovering YouTube in 2010, and where I think this is so much bigger than just Robinhood, because it's so much bigger than just their 30 million users. Like that's just one group of users who could go from Robinhood app to Robinhood Chain. The reality is there's a lot more than 30 million potential users on the planet, upwards of 7-8 billion. Akshay here agrees with me, or I'm sure part of my thesis came from seeing stuff like this over the weekend, but I think this is a really good post that explains a little better on why I believe it's going to be a tokenization super cycle. He says, imagine discovering YouTube in 2010 and thinking, great, American TV shows can now be distributed globally. You'd be right, but you'd miss the point. The real 1000X was that YouTube created an entirely new class of global native content that traditional TV could never compete with, i.e. the medium is the message. Tokenization will do the same to capital markets. It won't just make American equities easier to buy. It will. It'll also, lost where I was reading. It won't just make American equities easier to buy. It will take high quality, under-distributed companies around the world and violently reprice them. The more subtle point is distribution is valuation. Distribution was always one of the great moats of US capital markets, and that monopoly has now met its final boss: internet scale distribution of any stock in the world to anyone with a smartphone. Imagine every public company on earth was listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and every single person on earth had a Robinhood installed. I'll read that again. Imagine every public company on earth were listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and every person on earth had a Robinhood app installed. Do you think today's relative valuations would survive? That's the multi-trillion-dollar question. Before I go to Oxy, part of that could, while I do think that's very exciting to think about, and I do think that the distribution here is the disruption by being able to, it may start, a lot of people are like, oh, I can trade American stocks, I can trade American equities on chain 24/7. What we've not even really begun to tap into is how do I forget like public companies, how do I get access to private companies globally that aren't in the US? Like that's stuff that I've never even dreamt about, where it feels like we're like one new app, one new launch away from that becoming reality. And I think this might be the best analogy is the YouTube analogy, where I think a lot of people when they first saw YouTube in 2010 probably thought, oh, cool, this is now American content's going to be global. I can access American content without US cable subscription. While that happened to some degree, it created an entirely new class of creators, entirely new class of content, and that global on both sides, both the consumer and the creator, I think is maybe the best analogy here to what we're seeing in tokenization, that it's not just tokenizing stocks, it's the distribution now goes from those that live in the US to anywhere in the world. And then imagine when the other side of the faucet comes on. Imagine when it's not just NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, but every other publicly traded stock market in the world comes on chain. In some cases, you might see a rotation. Some people may sell their SpaceX to go pick the Chinese startup that's valued at a fraction of the supply. I don't even know if there's a Chinese competitor. I'm just as an example. So don't hold that against me. But I think it's to me, this is inevitable. Like it's like there's almost no future where we don't have this global financial market that's trading 24/7, and it's the options, what you can do, what you can get exposure to, what you can invest in is not 100x, not even 1000x, probably 10,000x the opportunities exist today. Not all of them are going to be good, but you're also like, you've never had the opportunity to get exposure to some of these companies previously, unless you were a really savvy investor and had, significant net worth, significant, contacts, and you had brokers that could help you along the way. Oxy GM, I'm going to go pin your recent post up top, and then I'm curious to hear your takes. Take it which any direction you'd like, and then we'll get Glassbox in here next.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you pinning that. You don't have to do that.
My pleasure.
Just a little extension to help people track their P&Ls for liquidity pools. So no, I appreciate it. Obviously related to tokenized equity, very much my my interests. For those who don't know, I work in the industry, do proof of reserves for issuers of these types of products. So a couple things. So I guess for one, the whole redemption side of things and what rights you get for holding these tokenized equities, it varies drastically from issuer to issuer. So if you're on chain and you're trading equities on chain, I would be conscious on whose NVIDIA or Tesla or whatever, whose Apple tokenized equity you're holding, because it changes based on what rights you have. So for instance, Backpack, not my client, for full transparency, they've got different rights than someone like another competitor might have. And I think Backpack currently, based on they've got different products or whatever, but based on what product you're utilizing, you have like the full rights where you can redeem for paper stock. You get dividends, so on and so forth. Others don't offer those same types of rights for holding that that tokenized stock. And so I don't know, I just want to come out and say that because I think that's an important distinction that people probably aren't paying attention to. If they really do care about that type of thing. I know a lot of people just want the price action exposure, and that's great. But maybe just pay attention if you really are worried about that side of things. Another maybe just a caveat is I think there's going to be a really interesting battle here because it's hard to envision that a small company like a Backpack that's tokenizing these equities is going to be able to maintain its competitive advantage when like BlackRock or JP Morgan or whoever else, or just even like the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange that are like the fundamental rails of trading equities want to get their piece of the pie. Like what's the competitive advantage, or is the moat deep enough to where JP Morgan can't just throw $10 billion at it and just be like, oh, okay, you know what, we're going to do this instead and just take over the market? I'm curious your thoughts on that. And I guess I've been thinking about it a lot this weekend. I was talking to an extended relative of mine who's very savvy in finance, and he wants to understand crypto and tokenization and all this kind of stuff. I talked to him for an hour, and he's like, well, the big guys aren't going to give up their advantage. Everyone uses Schwab or Fidelity, and the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ, they're not going to give up their rails. They're going to build their own blockchain, right? I
agree.
I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't they?
I agree. I don't know if we're going to see Schwab blockchain and JP Morgan blockchain. And I mean, there's already been talks like the Texas Texas Stock Exchange going on chain and their own L2. I don't think these legacy brands are going to give up, but I also don't know if they fight it. I think it's one of these oh, you can't beat them, we're going to join them. It's better rails. And yeah, they're not going to want to give up their user base. They're not going to lose their users. So I think that, and I also don't see them like, oh, let's go build this on Robinhood chain. But I also and this is maybe I'll share Zonko if you also want to join the conversation here, you can, because this is not my area of expertise. I could be wrong here, but I think this is also kind of what Zonko is alluding to some degree. He says the obfuscation of tokenization can be intimidating. What I try to focus on is custody. The legacy system in place, the DTCC, are simply just upgrading their custody to move forward and meet client demands. Moving stock tokens is easier than moving actual stock from bro to bro. I don't know if it's not exactly what you were saying, but I think that, yeah, eventually I think they all come on chain. and that's part of this tokenization super cycle is they all kind of bend the knee. They're all soon going to realize that, hey, trading with, having markets open during bankers hours, it's just, we're going to lose a lot of users. We're going to lose a lot of customers if we don't level up and join them. So while today there's, is it Robinhood chain? Is it Kraken chain? I think we could actually see a lot more blockchains in the future that are specific to these legacy brands. And this is just how they basically bring their user base, their existing rails, upgrade them, and bring it on chain. Does that check out with you, Oxy? Am I completely missing this?
No, absolutely. And I think that's why Robinhood's the leader in this entire side of the business. Like I think they're moving at breakneck speed towards blockchain integration into their products, whether it's through their chain or just simply on their app. Like I think the future of using a Robinhood app, whether you're buying stocks or buying stocks or options or crypto, it's going to be all on the back end. It's all going to be on their Robinhood chain. Like I don't see why they wouldn't utilize the tech, and no one's going to even know. You're not going to change your behavior whatsoever if you're a Robinhood user. It's just going to be faster. It's going to be 24/7, and it's going to be cheaper fee wise, probably, likely, because they don't have to go through. They don't have to go through the New York Stock Exchange, or they don't have to go through their market makers for the stock side of things, because it's all through liquidity pools on chain. So I think this is absolutely the way things are going. I think Robinhood's a front runner or a leader in this this adoption.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, I think it's I think that's the way it's going, no doubt.
So if I can answer the question you asked, I think you partially just answered it there, right? The cost structure of legacy financial system and their take rates and their revenue, right, is inferior to that of Robinhood. That is tech forward, tech first, no legacy technical debt that a lot of the banks and financial institutions have, right? Everyone's taking fees across the legacy financial system. And if they're going to compete, for example, right, on this plane, so how do they compete with a backpack that has a crypto native small team, everything on chain? Like Backpack will be able to beat them on price execution, right? So you can argue, for example, that, okay, the very sophisticated long-term customers of a JP Morgan or Schwab might not really move. They're not going to be first to move. Okay, that's fine. But the prize at hand is not just the US market of assets. The prize at hand is the rest of the world, and now wants to kind of get dollar exposure, right? To dollar assets, dollar stable coins, right? That's the prize and opportunity. And that's where like a Backpack of the world, I believe, has an edge over all the legacy guys, right? The guys who are trading over, $200 billion of stablecoin, flow in Nigeria every year. They do that on Tron. They do that on Solana. Those are the brands they know and care about. And they're kind of price sensitive too, right? So again, the absorption of all the capital in the world to sort of get exposure to, right, the greatest financial system ever and the most capital efficient country in the world. Everyone wants a piece of that. And I think that's where the upstarts, right, the Robinhood's kind of getting in really quickly and becoming a brand associated with tokenization and a good cost. And, I think it gives Robinhood an advantage. I think the world is big enough that the backpacks can also play, right? That, people understand that brand, that crypto natives will use them. Like, remember, we're still in crypto, where the original ethos of crypto is anti the current financial system. So there'll always be capital on chain that says, I'm never going to expose myself to a JP Morgan, a Schwab. Like, we want to take those guys down. Like, I'm going to use Solana. I'm going to trade on those protocols I know and trust. And in fact, also protocols where I have the ability to kind of participate on the upside. Like, I'll hold Solana tokens. And if Solana is successful, right, as a protocol, right, and then, Sol should do well. I have some level of agency, right, and exposure to the upside of the network. Like, you don't have that with JP Morgan, call it whatever you want. Like, you don't. And so my view is that part of the massive opportunity is everyone else in the world who can now get access to these assets on chain, right? that's where we're going to see massive capital flows. Like people in countries, like fundamentally where you're dealing with 20% inflation every year, you're dealing with massive debasement of your currency. Every despotic country in the world and every country that has very poor financial management, right, is going to lose the ability to manage their currencies because the capital flight will be of the largest and gargantuan proportions we've ever seen because no one is an idiot. Everyone wants dollar exposure. Everyone wants alignment with the dollar and the game that the US plays to ensure dollar dominance. And I think this is a massive opportunity now to kind of play, right, for, pun intended, a trump card against China, right? Because all of a sudden now, the US can flex that might, re-strengthen the dollar, right? We're already seeing the moves that the administration has made to secure, the original sort of, dollar-backed asset, oil, right? We pretty much now own all the flows of oil and control oil out of Venezuela. Venezuelan oil is more than Saudi Arabian oil. Venezuela has the largest suppliers of oil in the world, right? So the U.S. can now control, right, the key backing of the dollar, which is in the current world, which is actually oil as the largest commodity that's traded in the world, right? They're making moves within the Persian Gulf to ensure that there's that security. That's part of why the war is happening, right? And so when you put all those things together, it's an ultimate play to neutralize China to some extent and their first mover advantage to expand into the emerging world. And I think at that level of competition, we're thinking of geopolitics, right? The dollar is the one thing the US still has over everyone else, and they want to extend that dominance. So that's the macro picture. And I think the micro end is that the backpacks of the world actually can kind of project out and execute the large guys and do that on price.
Yeah, we'll go back to
Oxy
Oxy for a response, and then we will get Glassbox has been super patient, so I want to get the rest of these hands. But I think hearing the two of you share this, like where yes, Ming and his story is going to onboard more retail users directly into on-chain participation. Robinhood chain, what they're doing right now and being early to this tokenization of not just stocks, but RWAs in general. I know it's not the only place, but this is like their core focus in capturing headlines. Robinhood chain is going to onboard the masses. It just may come in directly. It may become because all their traditional TradFi competitors, hey, we can't not join this arena. And then by proxy, their users are also going to find their way on chain. So I think what we're seeing here really is a massive, massive onboarding moment. It's just not going to be, when we say the masses getting on, it's not going to be like how 21 was. It's going to be by way of these large institutions, these large businesses. But yeah, Oxy, go ahead and get your response, and then we'll get Glassbox, then Serini and Miss A.
Yeah, and I maybe to caveat, I agree. I think this is absolutely going to bring more people into the the U.S. market. There's just no question about it. Everyone's going to have access to markets. I think there's going to be an issue, and maybe I said my initial take slightly wrong, but there's going to be a trust issue somewhere where people aren't getting, like, if I'm XYZ trading platform, am I going to get my tokenized assets from Backpack or JP Morgan? Now I'm not saying like Backpack can't come in and beat out JP Morgan on price, because they're likely going to be cheaper on fees and take and all that kind of stuff. But they're not going to trust Backpack like they trust JP Morgan. And JP Morgan can come in and subsidize it. It's just I like the amount of money that they have and that they can throw around to kind of bully their way into whatever market they want to is just astronomical. So that maybe I probably phrased it slightly wrong, but I think there's a trust factor there as well that we're going to have to grapple with. And I think there's room for everyone, like you said. The market's massive. Backpack can take their share of the pie, just like JP Morgan can. And then to your point about dollar dominance, I absolutely see the U.S. pushing crypto as a means to maintain that dollar dominance. I mean, you can see it with stablecoins and Genius requiring them to, stablecoin issuers that are going to be Genius compliant. They need to have treasury bills. They need to have U.S. dollars backing them. Otherwise, they're not compliant in the United States. It's a huge step for the U.S. to want to maintain dollar dominance. And I completely agree that there's going to be crazy capital flight. And it's probably horrifying for a lot of these governments that they can't control their people through their money, like monetary policies anymore, because of crypto being such a mainstream way to transact. So yeah, a lot great points. I mean, I agree, mostly with everything that you said there. So yeah, really cool stuff though.
Yeah, exciting times, and not to keep pouring gasoline on the bull market fire. And I don't even know if I can share this, but let me see if I can share something from Discord without sharing everything from Discord. I'm gonna attempt. Yeah, here we go. I think this will come through. Okay. This was supposed to be part of the cold open. Bon Frutton shared this morning. Bitcoin holdings of countries. US on top with 328,000 Bitcoin. China number 2 with 190,000 Bitcoin. That may seem pretty normal. United Kingdom in third with 61,000 Bitcoin. Also normal. Then you got number 4, Ukraine at 46,000. Then a big drop off to number 5, but it's North Korea sits in fifth with 13,000. Then El Salvador, who mines Bitcoin, they're at 7,000. UAE at 6,400. Bhutan also, I believe, mines Bitcoin, as does Kazakhstan, I believe. Cheap Energy as well. They're at 49 and 3,500 respectively. And then number 10, Venezuela makes the top 10, and they have greater arepas and a lot of baddies, can confirm. They make the list at number 10 with only 240 Bitcoin, is a top 10 nation in the world right now. So you talk about this tokenization, the world coming on chain, these other US institutions not wanting to get left behind, these other nations not wanting to get left behind. If, maybe it's a big if, but if this is just another category where we're going to see a lot of FOMO, in this case, nation states, if the US starts actually buying Bitcoin, not just seizing it, I think this list probably looks very different. There's a lot of very wealthy countries who hold less than 240 Bitcoin. I think you fast forward a few years, this looks very, very different. And it's just like, could this happen without tokenization of RWAs? Yes, it could. Could all US and domestic and global stock exchanges come on chain without these Bitcoin numbers shaking up? Yeah, it could. But I think collectively, all these things, like we're at a spot where if you fast forward a few years, it's kind of easy to see a path where this chart looks very different. The TradFi institutions that have come on chain looks very different than what it is today. And all this stuff adds up, kind of 1 + 1 = 3, where all of a sudden, not that directly leads to active on-chain participants, but indirectly, I do believe it does. And we go from a very small niche portion of the internet to all of a sudden it's like the internet. It's like, just like in 1999, not everyone was online. Businesses didn't have websites. Now it's crazy to think about a business not having a social presence and a website in 2026. I think that's where this train is heading, and all this data shows how early we actually are. I don't think I shared anything I was supposed to there, but good chart. Appreciate you sharing. Glassbox, appreciate your patience. I think you've had to hand up for a while. Feel free to get in on this conversation. I know you've been waiting for a minute. Take it whichever direction you'd like. GM, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, GM, thanks, Captain. Really appreciate it. And shout out to you, man, longtime listener of your spaces here. Really big fan of you and Mike C in terms of just spaces that cover the Robinhood chain, as well as just, this new tokenization that we've been talking about of RWA. So appreciate you hosting and steering this conversation today.
My pleasure. Shout out to Mike C as well. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and appreciate you jumping up. Long time listener, first time caller. What was it that brought you up this morning?
Exactly. I got a few things I want to comment on. I have really been in the trenches here, obviously building out a project for Robinhood Chain. So it's sort of my and my team's duty to stay glued into the state of the space. I wanted to start, I have DeFi Llama up here in terms of the TVL question, right? Over or below 5 billion by the year end. I'll controversially say below. I think it's going to be above 5 billion without a doubt, in 2027. I'm just seeing right now DeFi TVL is 603 million, and then Bridge TVL is 1.7. If we're talking Bridge TVL, I think above 5 billion by the end of the year. But in terms of DeFi, maybe a little bit longer to go. Base right now has 5.5 billion TVL for DeFi. So a little bit of ways to go. In terms of the overarching discussion, I think I try to be a little bit more pragmatic with my takes and just sort of balance things out. I think the Clarity Act is going to be really exciting and a lot of stuff is going to move quickly. What I fear is the fragmentation of liquidity across multiple chains. And this comes from the perspective of someone who's bought a lot of Budweiser NFTs back in the day. And you might be thinking, what the hell does that have to do with this conversation? But like, I vividly remember, right, mainstream brands getting in on NFT mania, and everyone was so excited, like, oh man, imagine these brands. And it was more or less just a way to suck liquidity and extract from the ecosystem. And I think it's going to be a little bit different this time with the Clarity Act. I don't think it's really going to be that pure extraction, but I think for sure it is going to fragment on-chain liquidity. And I believe at some point, is either you or Oxy, I think it might have been Oxy, who was saying, like, is someone going to trust Backpack or BlackRock, right? I think that a lot of these institutions are going to be primarily concerned with setting up perp dexes and trying to, set up what Hyperliquid's doing. I'm very excited for options on chain. I think that's going to really create a ton of new and exciting projects. So that'll be really interesting to see. But in terms of just like where the state of the Robinhood chain is right now, in terms of like what are projects actually launching for RWAs, that's where I think the Clarity Act is just going to come in, incentivize these banks and larger companies to launch their own projects that are just going to put a lot of those to bed. That's why with Glassbox, we're trying to build something a little bit different than what we're seeing right now. Maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong. But yeah, that's just kind of high level overview. Would love to hear if there's any threads of that conversation to pull on. Just excited to be up here with, fellow people in the trenches and chatting through it on a Monday morning.
No, good stuff, man. Appreciate you sharing. Do you mind, I know you didn't come up to shill, but do you mind sharing at least TLDR high level? Like what are you building at Glassbox? What are you, maybe more specifically, what are you attempting to solve there?
Yeah, so there's some things I can say and some things I can't say, and I apologize. We're still just 3 weeks away from launch, and me and my co-founders have worked on lots of crypto projects. We've gotten front run before with some of our ideas, and it's less like we don't think anyone's going to front run us on this because like we've been using all of the max subscriptions of Claude. I think we have like 5 pro subscriptions and build with Fable, and it's taking us 2 months to build this platform. So it's not something that someone's going to be able to replicate in like a day or a weekend. But in terms of just stealing the concept and creating vaporware, we really don't want to see that. The problem that we see in the space, though, is just this high tax on tokens for tokenized stock is sort of the issue. Because I agree with everyone in the conversation, like exposure to US markets, private equity, there's a lot of good use cases for tokenized stock. What I don't think is really going to be sustainable for the long term is, hey, you pay a 3% tax on every transaction, and then you kind of accrue some pool of benefits. And that was really the leading thought that we're sort of building out Glassbox with. We try to think of incentives for all different users of our platform. We're trying to create a way where, hey, you can launch a token that can be revenue positive and generate revenue without having high fees, without having high taxes. And that's going to be through launching strategies. I can't really go super in depth about those strategies today, but that is like the high level is you're going to be able to launch strategies. These strategies will be able to generate revenue. And we're really keeping fees on our website as low as possible, or platform rather. But yeah, I think that's the main flaw that I see right now with the Robinhood ecosystem is like, you see Quotrons pumping off. I think they just have a really nice look, a fun aesthetic, but it is more or less exactly what Stockbrokers is doing. You see stuff like AI that's popping off. It's really fun and novel, but it's just like a meme that gives you stock. So I'm all for meme coins. I get the value there. I get the cultural relevance. But if you really boil it down, right, like, is there space in the market for 100 different projects to all just charge a tax and then distribute $20 of stock a day for $5,000 holdings? That's where I don't know. I think that's where the space might be a little bit flawed, and especially that thinning of liquidity that I think is going to happen, or that fragmentation of liquidity rather, is going to cause some problems for long-term bag holders, at least personally.
No, interesting. And I think, yes, early primitives, I think we see, to your point, a lot of the derivatives or inspiration taken from, say, stockbrokers, whether it's Quantrons or, I don't know, there's now dozens of them, literally. some have slightly different mechanics. And what kind of makes those flywheels hum today is the tax, is the fees. Same thing with FWA. We will talk about that here in a minute. And I think the crypto natives don't necessarily have an issue with the fees because we're kind of accustomed to it and understand, how that powers the ecosystem. But I agree when it comes to, your average consumer or investor. I think there's opportunity for alternative models that might be more attractive to someone who's not turned off by a larger tax or larger fee. So that said, like when I'm not trying to pry, I don't want you to share anything that you're not ready to share yet. But when time is right, welcome to come back and like to talk through a little more detail when you're either pre-launch or ready to launch or shortly after, when you're at a point to be able to share more of what you all are cooking. But it's part of my excitement right now is it's not just numbers go up and more active participants, like the on-chain builders. I'm not saying that they all left. Most of the at least the quality ones that are building now, they've been here throughout the last 5+ years, but they're now in, I think, twofold. One, markets are more kind to brands, projects, people that are shipping things in this market. More on-chain activity is certainly a benefit for those that have been building. But in addition to that, there's this, I don't know, like the vibes are just like they're back in the sense that there's more on-chain experimentation. Like it's, and I don't want to just keep going back to stonk brokers, but it was different. It was something we hadn't seen before. And therefore, I think like the first few derivatives are going to be almost just like a soft fork. I think it's going to lead, okay, this is cool, but what about this? What about what about or? And the cadence, the frequency we're seeing new ideas and new experimentation happening on chain it's been a while since we've seen this. And that's what really gets me excited, is to see not just who's going to be the next to fork or copy stockbrokers or Quantrons. By the way, Quantrons probably goes multi-chain. It's actually an Inc. employee that launched that. But what hasn't been launched yet that's not exactly the same, but rather, or slightly different, rather taking inspiration in building something new on chain. And not to say, not to, steal what you just said or what you're building, but that's the sense that I get is yes, fits in this RWA bucket, but very different from the other things we've seen in the early success of Robinhood Chain.
Oh yeah, completely agree. And I mean, just to say, our team and me specifically, and just my background has been in crypto for 5-6 years as a trader. I've been in every single meta, and by trader, I'm not just like a casual, hey, I've been here, an hour a week. I'm talking like 16, 18 hours a day during the NFT bull, and then every single meta since then. So I'm here, have seen all of the iterations, and working with legitimate devs, legal team, graphic design team. Like, we want to do something different. But all that to say, like, my team as a whole and me personally, I have so much respect for the builders in the space, and I completely agree with you, Cap. And I think the spirit of innovation is really back.
Yep.
It's really exciting to see people who are just coming out here. And I mean, I spoke to Simple Farmer on a Spaces last week. Super nice guy. I was honestly surprised a little bit because I've heard people complain about him in other discords, but I think that's just because the price was down at the time. He was very humble. Really just spoke about, here's what I'm trying to build, was very receptive to feedback. And I really liked, I talked to him about the sort of 3% tax problem, or just how do you get over this in terms of longevity? Because I do agree with you, Captain. I don't think anyone in crypto really cares about tax, at least in the short term. I think where it really starts to get tricky is once you reach that critical velocity of hey, now you have a token with 100 million market cap. How do you sustain that? I feel like one of the first projects that really sort of made me aware of that mechanic of a sustaining token with a high tax was Punk Strategy, right? I think that reached 300 mil tops, but it just got to a point of the holders weren't feeling incentivized enough. You need sort of that buy burn. That's where I really, really love Hyperliquid, because I think they just set the gold standard of hey, we're gonna have a protocol that can actually generate revenue. We're gonna take a majority of that revenue and buy burn our token. That's the best utility, is just decreasing supply so that the underlying asset is more valuable. I love that utility structure. I think they did such a good job with it. I kind of went a little bit on a tangent there, but yeah, I love the innovation right now in Robinhood Chain. And I think it's just going to be very cool to see like what all these teams are building and how they solve these problems to make them sticky and compete. But it's really awesome. Like it's a fun place to be building right now.
Yep, indeed, I absolutely agree, and so much it's got me wanting to build something of my own over there. But appreciate you jumping up, appreciate you sharing, and appreciate everyone's patience with hands this morning. We're gonna go Serini next, and then Miss A.
Yeah, and Captain, if I can just do one final parting thought, just want to thank you for having me on here. And big shout out to the speakers. I'll be back in probably like a week or two if you don't mind having me, so I can reveal all of the details of the platform. But yeah, we're building something different, so give us a follow if you can. Sorry to shill, but we're here in the trenches for real. We only have a couple hundred followers, and like we're trying to do it organic. We're trying to really build like a base of people who are interested in building on Robinhood and are excited for cool utility. So, give us a follow and we'll be back, Captain. But thanks for having us.
Yep, my pleasure. Thanks for jumping up. Appreciate you adding to the combo. And I do see our favorite proof in the chat. Just for some clarification, I there might be some others, but I do think it's like 1% on Stonkworkers powers most of the ecosystem, most of all transactions. So it's compared to like FWA and some of these, it's like 10% tax. Now, a difference would be the the anti-snipe tax, which is built to mitigate snipers. That starts, as we know, high, and then it should start at 99% and then go down from there. But most transactions are taxed at a much more palatable rate. But again, think opportunity for new innovation is now is the time. So if you've been thinking about building, now might be the right time. We did have some breaking news since we talked about so much football. Somehow Deshaun Watson was officially named the starting quarterback of the Browns, and there was no insider trading on this one, or it doesn't appear to be, because as of yesterday, Polymarket had Shador at a 73% chance of being named the starter. So, yeah, to which one front says, typical Browns move, can't even win games they're supposed to win, can't even insider trade properly. Serini, GM, appreciate your patience. What brought you up this morning?
GM Captain Z, thank you for getting me up here. Actually, I was down in the audience and I heard Oxy talking about the stock, so I had to come up and give a few points. And I'm glad I'm in line ahead of Miss A because she talks a lot. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, sorry for that, Miss A. YouTube analogy, that was amazing, Captain Z. I mean, it blew my mind. So thinking on those lines, I was thinking about stocks, and I don't know if you guys have seen this. The base had done that Where's Waldo kind of thing. So there was a small QR code over there. I went and looked at it, and it took me to Base stocks. So Base is also launching stocks, and I think Oxy said it very well. Who is holding the stocks, right? So if you go into that site, you can see that these guys have gone ahead and made an SPV in Abu Dhabi, and they're going to buy stocks from there and do all that stuff. So I think, I don't know, the Base is trying to front run Robinhood on doing the right thing, because Robinhood site doesn't give any, contracts regarding the stocks, but the Base site has got these contracts listed openly. You can actually see where the stocks are being held and all that.
Interesting. I did not see, you said Where's Waldo?
Yeah, so Base had put that picture, right? You find people were looking for meme coins, and you can see it on the Base. They've pinned it up on their profile, look for alpha kind of thing. There's an image.
Interesting.
And at the bottom of that, there's a QR code. You scan the QR code, it takes you to the Base org stocks page. And these stocks, one up on Robinhood they're doing is you can also in Web2, you can actually take loans on your stocks or lend your stocks and get money for them and all that. And finally, before I drop down, Bhutan. I mean, you brought up Bhutan, right? You said it was at number 10. Last December, I remember these guys had gone crazy. They've got this Gelefu mindfulness city, and the Bhutanese government had allocated some 10,000 Bitcoin for developing that city. And they also released a sovereign-backed gold token on Solana at that time. So December was a big thing for Bhutan, and that's when I realized those guys were big into crypto.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, man, it feels like, yes, while we might be early, it just really feels like I don't and I know that people have been saying this for years, but I don't know, and maybe it is longer than I think, but I also think that if half of this stuff pulls forward and comes to fruition, I don't know if 5 years from now, I think probable, if not likely, that, or very likely, that we're not necessarily early anymore because everyone's here. From nation states buying Bitcoin to TradFi tokenizing everything, just very exciting time to be here. And how to capitalize on it is tune in. You hit the reminder link is pinned up top, one in from Oxy's post. Go hit those reminders for the rest of this week, because while we've been, we'll pat ourselves on the back for, calling stockbrokers and having Simple Farmer on before Mint, and Chainmancers had Slump Farther on shortly after that before they minted. It's up 40% on the day, by the way. Also having another moment over there and excited about what they're building. Our guy Oxy called Kinetic. Talked about it on the show, put out a video on it, and Kinetic up like 40+%, and just announced, breaking news, just announced this morning, like 20 minutes ago, that they're launching El Sayu, a bad name, but once I learn how to pronounce it, maybe it won't be as bad. Elisayum. It's Kinetic's L2 on Hyperliquid. I don't know what it means, but other than Kinetic definitely ran up. Likely some of that pump was some, speaking of insiders, or maybe there was rumors or some speculation that they were going to do this. But yeah, go hit those reminders, tune into the show, and we will have a few more points today of things to pay attention to or keep eyes on as activity heats up. It's not just myself, it's not just the War Room, but quite often there'll be someone on the show that'll share something that they're working on or that they saw that helps others here win as well. And same thing from collaboration standpoints, allow lists, opportunities. Elysium. Elysium. I'll go with Payne's pronunciation. Miss A.
You should watch that movie. I'm sorry. Elysium is a great movie. I mean, if you have not seen it, you should see it.
I've not seen it. Yeah, I didn't even know it was a movie. I wonder, I would imagine then that's probably where they took a little bit of a 2013 film. Okay, I got another one for action, sci-fi, looks futuristic, dystopian science fiction, action film. So yeah, it must probably some inspiration from the movie if I'm guessing. Cool. Got another one for the, by the way, Lioness. I'm hooked on the show Lioness. That's it's, I think season 3 is out now. It's a good one. That's my current one that is has new shows coming out as we speak. Anyways, Miss A, appreciate your patience. GM, what brought you up this morning?
GM Captain. Hey, Srini, how are you? Thanks for the dig as usual, but I'm going to circle it back to the conversation regarding Oxy and what the gentleman came up who's actually building, his team is building on the Robinhood chain. I think that what was said early on, I wanted to loop it back in, because when you're looking at the possibility of how this could open up to a global market, you want to really have a framework that people could actually understand what's happening at a very minutiae level, especially when they start conflating certain words in English. And if our markets start to open up to a broader audience, there will be a confusion on the terminology being used, and it could also cause some issues, right? So I'm kind of just looking at like cutting through some of the verbiage and kind of understanding three things I want people to know is like, or I would like to know if I were someone that would be wanting to get access to this from abroad, because that's really what's happening. It's going to be like, I believe we're going to see a golden age in the US, because even in Europe, so many people are like, Europe is cooked. Do you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, many people are just trying to see how they could generate a substantial living or prepare a portfolio for the future generations, like their kids, maybe their grandkids. And in Europe, that's not very easy to do. And I've been in a lot of groups, not to kind of bring up the Facebook name, but I'm still very active in multiple social media channels, and I'm hearing it. They're really looking at other financial instruments to create wealth, to build a nest egg, et cetera, et cetera. And the problem is that also with business, people are seeing that the value of doing business, the largest consumer market is the United States. Do you know what I'm saying? Let's be realistic. And with the European region aging, they're over-regulating, and they're not going to have the impetus to actually move fast and break things, because they're more on the lens of averse, they're risk adverse. So you're not going to see that sort of balls to the wall, pardon my French, that you see with the United States, right? So I just got 3 things that came top of mind, because I've done over 2 decades of digital transformations with Fortune 100s, and it's tech, financial sector, pharma, supply chain, you name it. So I'd probably lean into these questions for some people. One of them is like, what are they going to actually get when they do have access to this? Because this is what standard investors or standard people would want to know, right? Do they get to vote on something? Are they going to have a legal claim? Or are they just going to get price exposure? These are like really important things that people like to educate themselves on. And then like, who is on the other side of that? Of like, if I put something in, who's on the other side of that redemption? You know what I'm saying? Like, who's on the other side? DTCC? Cleared token redemption? Like, that's what we have to ask these questions. Like, what's on the other side? A wrapper token, wrapper tokens have been talked about for a long time. I think way long time. But we have to ask these questions as consumers. Everyone keeps on talking about the people that are here. And, I know in Clubhouse, we used to always say pontificating from their high horse or whatever. Like, a lot of people here may know the crypto space, but a lot of people come to listen to your space, Captain, because they want to educate themselves. They want the quick hit. They want to listen to it and understand this very fast, and what should be the questions they should be asking themselves, or maybe their financial advisor, whether it be Fidelity, whether it be JP Morgan Chase. You kind of get it, right? So the third one is like, what happens to what I receive if the issuer fails? And everyone has the trauma from FTX and Terra Luna. Everyone has the trauma. So we have to recognize that the consumers are going to go back and be like, oh my God, FTX went under. Oh my God, Terra Luna crashed. And they're going to come back, and they'll probably, I think it was a gentleman that's building on Robinhood that didn't share his product. He kind of leaned into this a little bit, and I'm going to kind of dovetail a little bit more on that. In order for people to accept these projects or these efforts, they have to build trust. I think Oxy also mentioned it. They have to have a trust in where it's being built, who is building it, and can they believe and trust that they're not going to get rugged, right? Let's just use the terminology of the space, that they're not going to get rugged. Challenge there is that there's a big change message. And I know, Captain, you've said this with Steve in under 1,000 spaces. And I think I've even mentioned it a couple of times on your older spaces. There's a change management problem. There's a communication problem. We don't really get the right communication out to the people that can literally come in here as consumers to try and put in what they want to get a double of 3.5% to 7%, as Akin was saying. Do you see what I'm saying? The problem is not the product that much. The problem is there's a delta, there's a chasm of people that don't even know where to begin. And we don't have any spaces that we're bringing people in at the very minutia level anymore, because everyone just wants to ride fast, like the Formula One that I was just at this weekend. Do you know what I'm saying? They just want to speed without doing, without kind of sitting back and being, okay, this is not something I should speed through. I should listen. I should do some research, or ask my financial advisor to research. Or in this case, as we've also heard here, bankers will inevitably be the ones to probably bring some of those boomers in. They will be the ones to probably bring them in. JP Morgan, Fidelity, Bank of America, Citibank, they're going to be the ones to bring them in. However, they have to understand a bit more and feel confident that they will gain the trust of their consumers to present these financial or debt instruments that are so new. And I'm not saying DeFi anymore, because I'm on speaker panel of the Tron space. I'm not saying DeFi anymore. We're moving to OnFi. We're moving to on-chain finance, period. We're going from centralized on-chain finance. That's it. And we're going to bring all this stuff together. The picks and shovels have to be there, and multiple industry verticals still have to come in here. We haven't even seen a fraction of it yet, except the 41%, which is financial products. We still have another 59% of the world's industries that need to come in. I mean, even as I was at the Formula One, people aren't collecting tickets anymore. And I know, Steve, and you mentioned this, Captain, about tickets for these events, because no one's collecting the paper tickets as much anymore because the tickets are now digital, which I found fascinating. But what's also very interesting is people still want the analog experience. And that analog experience is going to come from the banker that could get that person to understand from the lens of the banking system, and then handhold that person over the bridge to come into the world of OnFi. You see what I'm saying? That's why like BlackRock's doing it, Strategy's trying to do it as well. And another number that's out there, I remember back when I came to the space, I maybe saw 5 companies that have treasuries of Bitcoin. That was like 13 years ago. I think now, I just looked at the number, there's 197.
It's
So
incredible.
just look at the number of public companies that have coming in and still continue to come in. So I'll land my A380 on that one.
No, it's awesome. Appreciate you sharing. And also, I'm going to steal OnFi. It's the first time I think I've heard that. And yeah, it's DeFi is only a fraction of the story because, and while I am a DeFi user and I appreciate DeFi, I'm not some decentralization maxi. Like I do think for most people, they should not be self-custodying their funds. A lot of average human beings, they'll click a phishing link in their email and or take a phone call and get scammed out of tens of thousands of dollars from their checking account. They probably shouldn't be sitting on 5, 6, 7, 8 figures of funds without any sort of insurance or support. I just like OnFi makes probably, not that DeFi is going away, but yeah, it's just part of the story. I really like that. Also, circling back a little bit, we will get to the rest of these hands here, but circling back to the conversation around these nation states, DP added in the chat. I wasn't aware of this. Brazil has active legislation to DCA Bitcoin up to 5% of their international reserves. The bill was advanced a few months ago. No ETA yet exactly when that'll take place. But from TradFi institutions bringing finance on chain, albeit centralized, to nation states DCAing into Bitcoin, like so much of the world it will directly or indirectly end up on chain, and very, very exciting time. I do see the hands. We're going to get to everyone. I think we had Oxy up next, then Akin, and then back to Glassbox. As I do that, though, because I want to be aware of time, and we do have, I know some people are going to want to tune into OSF space to see the rec traders reveal, and I want to answer a few questions in the chat. So we will get to the hands. Just bear with me here because I do think it's important. While ink is popping off and there's a lot of excitement and activity, a lot of it shouldn't capture your. It probably should not capture not just your attention, but also not your liquidity. The simplest is probably or what I think it probably is the starting point, as I said earlier, is NATO. NATO is the leading perp dex on Ink, which is Kraken's chain, and that one to me, it's go create an account. I'm not saying go trade perps today, but go create an account. If you're interested in doing anything on Kraken's chain, you should probably have a NATO account. NATO, I think, is going to be probably, if you were to say, okay, when this airdrop hits, if it is September or later, what sees the biggest airdrop collectively? Where the most, and I think you're probably fast forward a few weeks, you're going to see people victory lapping or screenshotting their airdrop from NATO. I'm guessing again that the Kraken, the Ink token has to go live first, but if it does, NATO users probably win. I pinned up Phonics is Reflink because he's been on the NATO train for a while, months beating that drum and trying to get the rest of us trading perps on NATO as well. Another one, Quantrons, I mentioned. It's up. It's actually probably one of the few NFTs that might be down on the day, but it ripped up pretty big. I think I first looked at it was like $300. It's now like $1,000. Might have topped at around like 1,500 USD or USDG rather. It's think stockbrokers, but instead of the 6551 ERC standard, it's using ERC. It's an ERC 404 collection. It's on Robinhood chain today, but it's important to know it was created by an employee of Ink, and they've teased, or even maybe in the dropdown you can see Ink. Like I'm guessing it's either going to migrate from Robinhood chain back to Ink, or go multi-chain, I think is probably the most likely. So check out NATO, check out Quantrons if you're interested. I would recommend, and I'm not fudding this, I don't know the founder, I don't know the team, but it's an easy example. I would recommend probably avoiding just cheap knockoffs. Like this is like a Temu Rect. They didn't even try. I mean, they even calling it Rect Ink, and they didn't even like it's like again, it's a cheap. The art looks like you just go buy either an OG Rect guy, or if it's price, like people literally bought this knockoff for more than they could have bought a Rect trader yesterday on Robinhood chain, and it ripped because there was this mania. Oh, there's going to be an airdrop. Let's go buy some cheap NFTs. This thing ran up to like 0.1 or 0.8 and it's already pulled back tremendously. Don't like, there will be opportunities, but just because it's an NFT on a new chain does not mean it's a good opportunity. A lot of these will speed run to zero. We'll have a pump and then it's so. And I'm not hating the game. If you want to play the game, go play the game. But just know that it's like a game of hot potato. If it's just purely an NFT that's copying what someone else has done and there's no other mechanics, there's nothing to it other than it's Temu art. I know it's subjective, but I don't know anyone who could look at the Temu version compared to the original Rect art, which is OSF's brainchild, and think this is better. Anyways, I'm not trying to pick on Rect Ink. I'm not fudding it. If you hold Rect Ink bags, I hope you at least took some gains while it was up yesterday. But this is a current snapshot, so you can see it's already down 50% from yesterday. It ripped up on the FOMO to almost 0.1, and that screenshot I just shared was 0.8. It's already back down to 0.0249. That's probably more appropriately priced. But you can, if you just want cheap NFT exposure on Ink Chain, go mint a free one. Like there's a bunch of free mints popping off. If you want NFT exposure, I don't think it's wise to go pay 0.1 ETH for some derivative knockoff Temu version of an NFT on mainnet or Robinhood chain. Find something that's unique. Find something that's different. Find something that has these RWA mechanics like Quantrons or something else, or just mint the free ones. Like there's going to be more free mints likely to come, and this is Fearless kind of to support this point. At least says at least I'm quoting someone else, says at least all the scams and rugs are pivoting to Ink Chain. Now we know only cooks are on Robinhood, and this just like you can see everything ripped up yesterday. It's still relatively. I mean, you're talking like $7 to $141, but just know that this $7 NFT that was a low effort. I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm not clicking through because I don't even want to know. There's probably going to be another one that you could mint today for free. So before you go spend a bunch of money on NFTs that have really no future for all intents and purposes, people are just trying to get exposure in case having a certain amount of NFTs leads to more token airdrop. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you probably would win more by making a few trades on NATO than you would for going and buying 100 NFTs today. But if that's your game, if you want to play the NFT game, fine. I just do your own research, find what you're getting into, and the ink punks, the ink brokers. It's riskier than other opportunity. Again, ink brokers, 24 cents. There's probably going to be a Boomer Brokers that launches today that'll be free mint. Like there's ways to get NFT exposure without. And if you want to get the NFT exposure, then buy the ones that are pennies, not ones that are already ripped up to 0.1, purely on speculation for an airdrop. Is my read. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong about Ink or Rect Ink, my apologies. But I was born at night, I think. I don't know actually, but it wasn't. Even if it wasn't night, it wasn't last night. Back real quick, then before we get to the rest of these hands here, just so I can get a kind of I should have done a full market update today with everything ripping, not just majors, not just crypto, NFTs having it's really exciting when you have a levered bet on ETH rips, and NFTs are up as well. Pudgies are up 6% on the day. Hyper's up 2% on the day. Apes are up 4.8% on the day. The crypto punks are up 2% on the day. Quantrons, I mentioned, it's down 8%, but in the other screenshot I just said they were $800. So it's up as well. It's been on a ripper. It just happened to pull back from like its all-time high. Little Pudgy's up 17% on the day. I don't know when the last time we saw a 17% gain on a collection like Little Pudgy's, but that's on 50 ETH of volume as well, 111 sales. Cash Cats up 120%. Mutants up 1%. Wrecked Traders up 17%. I saw during the show they hit 0.1. It's kind of hovering in that 0.7 to 0.1 with Real coming up as early as like 15 minutes here. So I'm gonna speed run the rest of this market update. We'll get to Akin, Glassbox, and then Zonko, and then probably get you out of here. Stackers, this is another one that it's like a derivative of stockbrokers. It's at 0.14, up 52% on the day. Milady's down 1%. I mentioned Rect Inc., that copy pasta collection. Not even copy pasta. They are just pretty bad, objectively. Sorry. RH Machines, it's down 18% on the day, but with Outlaws up 32%, Templars of the Storm. This actually, if you're gonna pay for an NFT on Inc., this might be the one. Unless someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Templars of the Storm was an NFT that came from NATO. The early users of NATO, the leading perp decks on Inc. They had like after season 1 or something. Again, I did not heed Phonix's advice early enough, but basically you accumulated NATO points, which those points are going to be convertible, or you're likely going to get some sort of token allocation for your NATO points. There was also, you could either double down on your NATO points, or you could redeem them or burn them, trade in your NATO points for an NFT. That NFT was Templars of the Storm. So if you're going to buy an NFT on Inc. Chain, at least look at Templars of the Storm. Yes, it's more expensive at 0.36, and it's up big in the last couple of days, but it's actually, there's something there that's from an actual protocol. I have no idea if NATO has any plans for any future utility with their NFT, and I'm not planning on dropping 0.36 ETH on an Inc. Chain NFT today. Maybe I change, but if I do, it's because I'm going to do research, and what I find is Templars of the Storm ends up being at the core of the NATO ecosystem, and other potential rewards come from that. There, I'd be interested. But quality over quantity, if you're going to be actually buying NFTs. In Kitties, another, again, free mint last night. It's now trading at $1.63. There's going to be probably 5, 6, 10, 20 more free NFT collections that mint on Inc. Chain over the next couple days. So just know that you don't have to go buy something that's out there if you purely are doing it to get NFT exposure to the chain. Moonbird's up 10% of the day. Azuki up 1% of the day. Clay Stonks up 7% of the day. Inks up 334%. It's now at $10. Krakens, maybe there's something you think's fun, you resonate with. Maybe there's a community. Just do your research and don't just blindly go buying NFTs because they're on Inc. Chain. We're already seeing a lot of rotation, and you can see like Anita's another one. Like they pumped yesterday and now they're way down. We buy rips. No, don't do that. We buy dips and we sell rips. Please don't buy some cheap, cash grab NFT that's up 150% in the last 24 hours. Buy one that's down 150% that actually has something to it beyond just airdrop speculation. I might have a few other things on that, but and I know I just shared a lot of the NFTs at a glance at a high level. The Robinhood chain, there was a sell-off last week as there was rumors of a Trump token. I don't know if we talked about this on the show because I think it kind of came out Friday, but there was rumors of the Trump family launching another token on Robinhood chain, and Eric Trump came out and said this is false, this is not happening, it's not true. So people basically sold off NFTs and tokens they're holding to have liquidity ready for this Trump token. Once that was announced that it wasn't happening, we saw almost immediately rotation back into NFTs and tokens. Stockbrokers have been up. I mean, you can see the chart here. Most kind of rebounded pretty quickly. Cash Cat up 30%, Pawns up 76%, Stockbroker up 33%, AI up 50%, HMM up 45%. Robbie, the leaders got a pretty healthy rotation back after the rumors of a Trump token were shot down or denied. But let's get around our hand here. I might have a few other alpha bits to send you off with. Just as everything, do your research and just proceed with caution if you're buying random stuff that just pumped on Inc. Chain. It's likely pumped just because of airdrop speculation. There's no guarantee you go spend an ETH on low derivative NFTs today and not get any token allocation for it. So it's definitely worth doing your research. Also, Beans up 40%, KYC up 50%. That's Jack Butcher's recent collection. Ascension up 72%. That's whitelist for naives for Manny. I did see Naives. I wanted to try to get in that one myself. And human resources up 22%. Maybe the PFP is VersaWorks, the get allow list. Just a lot of stuff popping off. And oh, by the way, we haven't even hit on FW Air or FWARE PFPs that go live today. I'll quickly show those, and then we'll go back to Akin if you haven't seen it yet. These unique mechanic here, FWA Air, they're kind of cute little PFPs. They're like a PFP squunched in a box, and they took a lot of like, the MetaMask Fox, the Alpha Degen, Jesus, I can't think of the name. The Robinhood, Wall Street Alpha guys, different known like the Nouns glasses, the I don't know if that's supposed to be a Twitter bird or what, little pudgies. Basically took a lot of, there's like a thread guy one. But how to get these, there's 111 NFTs. They're all going to be deposited into the main FWA pool. Excuse my Southwestern Ohio vernacular. So basically 2 hours until and this came out at 10. So at noon, the backing for all these FWA Air PFPs go live. And once the collection's back, so you could back an NFT inside the collection, the only way to get them is through playing FWA, is playing the gacha. So there'll be 111 of them in the gacha machine today, and that's how you can get one. As my understanding is you gotta get lucky. The gacha gods have to smile on you. I'd be curious. I think these will probably trade for a pretty penny on the secondary market. I mean, I would not be surprised. There's only 111 of them, and the ecosystem has a lot of motion now. Rhinotic is by some being claimed as the savior of ETH. I would not be surprised to see these run up to an ETH or more because of the small supply and the motion the ecosystem has. That's it. Long rant there. Ken, did you want to get back in here?
Yeah, so I wanted to respond to some of the comments made by the lady who got off stage and answer some of those questions around just how does the average person understand what's going on. I think that's what the Clarity Act is trying to do. Put the law out there that creates the rules of the road that lets financial institutions participate. And you can go to your favorite financial institution that's regulated in the US, and that would be probably where I would start for the uninitiated, right? Robinhood, whatever platform is building into the space. I think that's the starting point because you have legal recourse and they're well-regulated entities. I think the second part for those who are on chain, who don't necessarily have access to the US market, I think you need to look at the protocols that these entities are leveraging on chain, because they are building into decentralized protocols to capture native yield, right? And the obvious one is Morpho, which, the largest share of USDG, so that's a stablecoin for Robinhood, the largest share by far of those stablecoins coming on chain to earn yield are being staked on Morpho. And then there was a point or a question that came around the bifurcation of these markets, where you might have, liquidity kind of all different places, multiple blockchains. I mean, that's a fact, and it'll always be the case. But I will tell you is that the largest protocols are going to get the largest share, like the Morphos of the world, or Uniswap, where a lot of these tokens are being traded. They go across at least EVM world. They go across all EVM chains of any node. So again, the capital is going to aggregate on protocols that sit above the chains, right, and allow you to funnel capital across chains in the back end, right? So there'll be bridges and ways for them to optimize the flow of capital across multiple chains. But it's at this protocol layer that you'll have sort of like the coming together of these markets. And then the last thing I'll say to around the point of, there was a point raised around the previous gentleman as well around, well, the brands and banking and, who's going to use some of these nouveau protocols over, the banks. And I will say, Morpho just raised $150 million in a round, right, that was subscribed by a number of entities, but I'll pick just one. And I mentioned them earlier on. It's Apollo Global Management. They have $1 trillion of capital under management of private capital. Apollo is one of the first funds to put a tokenized credit fund on chain. They understand the economic improvements of tokens, and they have $1 trillion, a trillion with a T, sitting there that they will definitely love to tokenize bring on chains through Morpho, right? A decentralized network or decentralizing network, which I have a stake in, right? And so for me, again, when we talk about, oh, where's all this volume going to come from? Like for a large extent, we talk primarily stable coins, right, in this conversation. But here's an asset manager with $1 trillion. This is just one, $1 trillion under management. That's mostly private capital, right? So this is not necessarily bank capital or right. This is sort of like alternative assets, private money that they now want to bring on chain. And then to kind of like close that, the key important thing, and I think this is where I think private capital is going to be vastly superior. The powers of the world are going to be, right, the emerging largest financial institutions in the world, for a simple fact that, you know, US banks are the most highly regulated entities in the US. Right after the financial crisis, Dodd-Frank put a lot of compliance rules on them, right, that made it expensive to comply. There are all sorts of reporting requirements. So the capital structure or the cost structure of banks is just vastly inferior to private capital, because in the United States, you know, private capital isn't regulated anywhere near as highly as the banks who are accumulating consumer capital, right, in like the bank accounts, right? So that's a very important distinction to make. And the last thing I'll say to kind of like, you know, sew that in, I put a post on my timeline is, you know, private credit over the last 10 years, AUM has been growing at 26% year over year since 2016. And that's 5 times faster than the growth rate of uninsured banking deposits. So uninsured banking deposits is everything that's not in a bank account that's FDIC insured, right? And so imagine that over the last 10 years, those growth rates are, you know, and then when you now think about tokenization and what this law, if Clarity Act passes, what it enables, again, it will accelerate that growth rate and the relative growth rate of private capital versus uninsured bank deposits. Because the private capital folks are just giving you a better product, more superior in terms of the ROI on that product, right? And then also the ability to leverage that product into other things. A tokenized asset represents something you can borrow and lend against, right? You can take capital out of it, and it's extremely capital efficient, because the way in the United States, right, you never want to sell equity. You want to borrow against it and then write off the interest. And so these types of products now become available to everyone, right? This is the domain of, right, sophisticated, you know, high net worth individuals. All of a sudden, these tokens are now accessible to the average person. And so for me, I think the whole trail of trust, the sense of a better package, the headwinds of money moving out of the banking system into the private sector, into private capital coming on chain, right? This is just one entity, Apollo, that has $1 trillion, right? There are dozens of entities in the US that have AUMs of hundreds of millions, or hundreds of billions, tens of billions, right? That's where I think we're actually going to see most of the initial flow on chain, because they're just better positioned to like do that quickly relative to banks.
Yeah, no, good take. I do agree. We'll go Glassbox, and then we'll get Zonka if you want to get in here. I invoked you. Quick PSA for anyone that has Popkins. Go check the Kleino's Discord. There's a recommendation there. Phantom is going to stop support for the SUI or SU blockchain in the near future. Slush.app is another wallet that will be continuing support of SUI. So just make sure, take some action there. If you have questions, go jump in the Kleino Discord. We might have that team on maybe tomorrow, as they have Hibu coming up here this week, I think. So exciting time there. And then we're going to go speed round, lightning round here, if you don't mind, Glassbox and Zonka, if you want to get in here, because personally, I want to go check out this Rec Trader reveal, and I might do some sniping. It's been a minute since I sniped on an NFT reveal, but and it's not even like the art I do like, but I want to play the game. I'm going to get my fantasy lineup built of which trader personalities I want. Something else that I don't think we've talked about all in the show, but it's kept capturing some momentum, some virility on the timeline, is netnet.capital or app.netnet.capital. don't have time to get into it today, but I at least wanted to call some attention to it. Think of it like gamified RWAs. You can play games like Space Invaders, albeit called Space X Invaders, reverse Plinko drop that pays in SpaceX stock, the tokenized SpaceX stock anyways. So some different games there, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and the reward there is Microsoft stock. So just a coin flip. It's a provably fair coin flip game, but instead of winning some fungible token, you win Coinbase stock. Again, thing could fizzle and fade. I don't know. It's not an endorsement. I have zero exposure right now, but it's something that it's on my open tab list to explore later today. But first things first, let's get to these hands, lightning round, and then we'll let you all get out of here and go check out that Rec Trader reveal. I did pin up a post from OSF. They'll be going live on Rec Markets to talk about that, reveal the art, and also that Phonics is referencing for NATO's up there. And then last but not least, I'll repin the reminder for the shows for the remainder of the week. We'll be back tomorrow. We've got a few guests lined up this space, and we'll continue the alpha conversation. But Glassbox, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in with maybe some light alpha ahead of this Rec Trader reveal. Again, just try to stay really on top of everything going on in the space. So for Rec Traders, just as a reminder for people listening, it is a game going on. So it's not just like an art collection, but the idea is like each artwork has a trading personality attached, and they all trade paper accounts, and whoever is the last trader standing basically wins this pool. So in terms of sniping, Captain, because I'll definitely be there on the Glassbox intern account, and we've had a decent track record of sniping some stuff on some reveals. I'm going to be personally looking for if there's a trading personality trait or some level of trader IQ. I think with a lot of these, there's going to be people looking for just OpenSea rarity, right? As the classic metric of oh, this is rarity number 1, so I'm going to overpay by a lot on that. I think ideally you want to look for is there a trait that represents how smart this trader is, and then if there's that trait, I would just hone in on that very, very quickly. I've seen a few collections in the past, like cyber brokers, where sort of occupation is really important. So just wanted to share that piece of soft alpha. I think for sniping, I don't know if there is or isn't because I haven't revealed yet, but if there is that, I think there's going to be some high EV snipes.
I agree. I agree. Well said. And yeah, this is not, the art may resonate with you. You may love the art, but sniping here is not just, it's not rarity based. It's not, it is trait based, but and we also don't know exactly how the game's going to play out. So don't, again, you can do your research. We just don't know all the information. So if you are curious, maybe tune in. We'll get, I think, some more details on the game. I believe launches on the 31st. But by then, the edge, the upside might be evaporated by the time it's all revealed. So a little bit of speculation. For me, how the approach I'm taking is I would like to get at least one of each of the different trader personalities, to where if one ends up being this is OP, this is the overpowered trader, this is one you got to have. The even if I'm not winning in the game, my thinking is the floor price on those will go way up. Yeah, I don't think it's going to reveal right at 11 here. Probably he'll probably let it cook for a few minutes before he does reveal. But Zonko, did you want to get in here? I did invoke you earlier by reading your post there and shouting you out. But did you want to get in on this conversation this morning, GM?
Howdy, Cap. GM. Long-time listener, first time talker on stage. So
really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Well, welcome. I know you're a long-time listener. I appreciate all the support in the chat. A lot of comments. I feel like I read a comment of yours about every other day. But yeah, I didn't realize first time up on stage. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. So just a little quick background. I'm just in fund administration. So I work with buy-side firms and brokers all around the world for my job. If I had to synthesize this topic down into one sentence, I wouldn't say it was early or late. If I had to think of a hypothetical type deal, it's kind of like you're in middle school and you're seeing all your buddies get girlfriends and everyone's like, whoa, how are these guys getting girlfriends? So now everybody wants to find out how to get a girlfriend. But yeah, interesting topic in tokenization with how many layers there is to it. So yeah, just wanted to give my 2 cents. Again, just huge fan.
No, man, appreciate you. Appreciate you jumping up. Thanks for sharing your 2 cents. And yeah, more to come. We'll have to have you back more often. You're welcome, as you know, anytime. But thanks for adding to the conversation, not just today, but quite often. And we'll have to fix the next time. We'll have to. It can't be as long between this listening and the first appearance on stage and the next one. Again, go ahead. Lightning round, and I do want to get out of here because I want to go. I'm not gonna be able to snipe if I don't know what I'm supposed to be sniping.
Yeah, my question was actually for Glass. Do you know at all if, I'm assuming like Rect is using VRF of some form to sort of have, it being random.
We don't know
if they're doing that, if they're using Chainlink, like what's the Oracle and how they. Does anyone know that information at all?
Not
or is
yet.
this something that we'll find out?
Yeah, no, I'm probably going to share some of that maybe on, and we may not get all the details on how they're going to play the game today. But yeah, that's they've held most of the details on the game itself, and I expect them. Maybe we'll get some more information today, but we may not get it until they actually go live. But apparently, we're not missing it yet. OFS had some internet connection challenges, and OpenSea. I did also see he's making some slight. He had an idea, some inspiration striking here right before they're supposed to do this reveal. So it may not be right. It's not been yet. So we got a little bit of time between now and actual reveal going live, and like I said, game not going live for about another week. But really enjoyed the show today. Appreciate everyone who joined us. Several new speakers on stage. Greatly appreciate you all. Stay safe out there. Don't go aping just random stuff on InkChain. There's already been a rotation back. Some of that stuff that pumped has already sold off. There could be some gems to find over there, but I think maybe the safest is a protocol that's not going anywhere. Whether it's NATO or there's also a lending protocol. The name is slipping me right now, but there's other there's more going on than just some knockoff free NFTs that are pumping. You can go play the game too, and you can probably do well on it. Just know it's a game of hot potato, and there's no guarantee that any of those lead to allocation. That said, go hit the reminders to play out of here. It's pinned up top. I think a couple times. It is all the way to the left. We'll be live tomorrow and every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern time. We usually don't go this long, but blame our football rant to open the show, both footballs. But we will have. We'll be back tomorrow without a football rant to open the show, but we will have It's Called Football at 10:30 for those that want to dive deeper there. Good luck out there today. Stay safe in the streets, but buckle up. I think we could see some pullbacks, but if history says anything, a 20% weekly candle on Bitcoin usually leads to more good things. So have some fun, do your research. Don't ever put any money in you can't afford to lose. Know that I'm not a financial advisor. We're sitting here talking about pixelated human brokers and animals and other nonsense. Hope just join us for some fun, some information, maybe a little bit of education along the way. But have fun out there, stay safe, and join us tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern time. Appreciate everyone who shared today on stage as well as in the chat. It's very helpful, and we'll be back tomorrow with some more. Until then, have a wonderful, wonderful day, everyone.